me fall so hard? Should have stayed in your own backyard. Why'd you make me fall in love with you?
Hats off. Take a moment to remember all the brave men and women serving all around the country to guarantee the freedom for us to enjoy a day like this. Thank you.
To Lacrosse Day in West Hartford as Channel 5 and the War Chief Sports Council proud to present West Hartford High School Sports. It's doubleheader action. First up, the boys, as the Hall Warriors host the Conard Chieftains. Welcome to Chalmers Stadium, everybody. Pete Lamoureux along with Steve Boyle and our fine Channel 5 crew. So glad you've joined us on this 92-degree early summer afternoon. Both these teams headed to the state tournament in Class L. Matt Sersasimo, his first year as the head coach, replacing the legendary Bill Condon, was at the helm for 25 seasons at Conard, and Matt has his team at 7-7. They had a 5-game winning streak earlier before losing their last 2. For Hall, they come in at 6-7 for second-year head coach Ben Van Meyerhauser, and the Warriors come off a lopsided victory over Southington in their last outing, 16-7. Pleased to be working again with Steve Boyle. And Steve, when we talk about Hall lacrosse, we start with number 3, Theo Blashinsky, a team-high 31 goals on the season.
Yeah, that's certainly a number that a lot of coaches would like to be able to predict in the beginning of the season. Full disclosure, I had Ben Van Meyerhauser as my assistant for a year, and absolutely adore him as a person and as a coach. And sometimes you get to know current players through the eyes of a coach, and Coach Van Meyerhauser certainly loves Theo Blashinsky. It's a name he brings up to me often. He's known him on the football field as well as the lacrosse field now for a couple of years. And I think he sees a lot of himself in Theo, and sometimes that means button heads, but it also means really believing in the young man and adoring him, because that's the word that often comes from Coach Vaughn about Theo.
Just about set for the face-off here. It'll be John Lagoy against Shea Friedman as we get set to get things underway. First of two for you here on Channel 5. We'll have the girls' game tonight after 6. We're underway, and it's controlled by Conard. Sebastian Suarez, the first to touch it. And he gets it back and tries to lead the attack out for this Conard team.
So that was the face-off that Conard won there. In the girls' game, you'll hear it called the draw. In the boys, it's called a face-off. You'll often get a lot of dads that'll call the girls' game a draw. That's a nice save right there, and a attempt at a clear. Going back to Conard, though.
And that initial save by Alan Horner, the junior, who, according to Coach Ben, very, very consistent, hard worker, and has about 48% as a save percentage for the current season. Yeah,
that's certainly a crazy number, 48%. You know, when you consider the speed at which this ball is coming, goalie in any sport is one of the most valuable positions. That's a nice bounce shot there by number 3 on Connor, Luke Serdensky.
And he's got his 22nd of the season, Steve. We were talking about Theo Belashinsky on the Hall side, leading with 31 goals. He's the leader for Conard now with 22 on the season.
Yeah, that's a nice little shot there, and that, you know, it's one of the hardest ones to handle as a goalie is that bounce shot, because it's hard to predict, and especially early on in the game, the trajectory off the bounce. And believe it or not, hot days can impact the way the ball's going to work, the way the field's going to work. While we're 92 degrees up here in the press box, I guarantee it's probably measuring about 100 down there.
Ben Hollerbach got the assist. Conard wins another faceoff. And here they go on the attack, trying to increase their lead. We talked about the 5-game winning streak that they had. That all started with an 8-7 double overtime win over Northwest. Really spurred them on, and according to Coach Sersasimo, really led to a good season for them.
Yeah, I think like any sport, winning breeds confidence, and lacrosse is definitely a momentum game. What you'll find is people will get complacent with 5 or 6 goal leads, and the next thing you know, they've let up, because it's definitely, in the same way it's a game of streaks during the actual game, it can be a streaky sport in terms of the way your season works as well.
And no shame, of course, losing to Cheshire and Glastonbury in their last 2.
Absolutely. Traditional powerhouses, those are the kind of games that coaches actually like to have late in their schedule. While certainly some like to schedule wins, good coaches like to schedule competition to get you postseason ready. And Coach Sersasimo is certainly a good coach.
There's a shot, and they score! Gabe Suarez able to connect, and Conard off and running with a 2-0 lead.
Yeah, I think that's one that Horner would certainly like to have back. It's a good shot. He was probably anticipating, in that case, a bounce, and it just came in right at the toes and slid in. You know, being a goalie, it's a lot of timing, a lot of rhythm, and you know, he'll get his groove back. Once he gets a nice save, again, he'll be able to find his rhythm there.
Serdechny gets the assist, so already a goal and an assist, and the game just 2 minutes and 2 seconds old here in the opening quarter. John Lagoy, I'm sorry, Steve, trying to win his 3rd consecutive faceoff, 61% on the faceoffs this year for him. You know,
this is one of those sports that there's no guarantee you're ever going to get the ball back. Face-off in lacrosse means so much. That looked like a false start on Conard. He went in before the whistle. It's automatic turnover to Hall. So Hall face-off man comes off the field, and we got a replacement midfielder now.
I want to talk about the Hall face-off guy as well. Shea Friedman, 59% on the campaign. So a battle of 2 young men who are excellent in the circle, as it were. Just underway, 9:40 to go, opening quarter. Hall with the ball, and they trail by the count of 2-0. An early surge here for the Conard Chieftains.
Yeah, and again, possession matters more than anything else. I mean, we talk about it in football. If a team's going to possess the ball 75, 80% of the game, they're likely going to win. But what happens in a sport like basketball, the other team scores, you're going to at least get the ball back and have an opportunity. In lacrosse, you could score 10 in a row, and the other team may never get the ball if you continue to win face-offs. So it's why the face-off is so important and why limiting turnovers is key.
Just saw that pass from Chris Monas to Jack McHale. Monas is the one that directs all of his action from behind the net. This is Max Congdon playing catch on the perimeter with Jack McHale for the Warriors.
Again, full disclosure, I don't know the boys' game as well as I do the girls, but one of the things that translates well for anybody who's a novice to the sport is it really is an awful lot like basketball. Right now they're running some motion sets, trying to get some isolations. You'll see some screens that are thrown in. You'll see some back cuts. And what's nice about the man in the back, it's like having, imagine you're going against a zone. As the defense turns, that passer gets to see everything, gets to see the attacker, puts the goalie in a really difficult spot.
This is Mons with the ball. Goes back behind. Lost control of it. And it's going to go back to Conard. And the Chieftains will get a chance to put it in play. We talked about Mons, the all-state soccer player. 15 goals, 14 assists. And according to Coach Ben, one of the 2 fastest kids on his team.
Yes, speed matters obviously in just about any sport except maybe golf. And but in this case, if you can have some a team of kids that are faster than the others, you've got a leg up. No pun intended.
Conard trying to add to the 2-0 advantage. This is Hollerback behind the net for the Chieftains. This is Serdechny, the leading scorer, already with a goal and an assist on the afternoon. Gets it back outside to Gibbons. They play catch on the perimeter. Suarez. And now Serdechny. I'm sorry, Steve. Talking about Serdechny. Good one-on-one skills and technique, according to Coach Matt Sersasimo.
Yeah, he's obviously a good athlete, and so these are the kind of things that happen in the Hall Conard games, right? Is that it's hot out there, and you can throw records and past history out the door. The kids are obviously nervous, which a little bit of nervousness is never a bad thing as an athlete, but when it gets in the way of performance, that's when we struggle as coaches. It's trying to get them to settle down, stop with the turnovers, just play within yourself, and don't try to do too much. Like both teams have had really unforced errors at this point that have cost some possession time.
Graham Kennedy with the pass to Blashinsky. Now this is Jack McHale, and back outside. Nolan Tibwall, a sophomore, transfer from Northwest Catholic out there for the Warriors right now.
Yeah, Nolan's a great little athlete. I knew him when he was young, when he came through our camps, and he just loves to play. And this is an athlete sport. This is a sport that really competitive, aggressive kids that maybe come to it late but pick it up quickly if they've got good eye-hand coordination, good fitness, and good toughness. So you'll see a lot of crossover athletes in lacrosse.
And shot goes wide. The way you were just describing the lacrosse athlete, you were just talking, it was ironic as you're describing the hockey player as well. And in Canada, this is the #2 sport to hockey.
Yeah, absolutely. Wayne Gretzky's known for saying exactly that he really couldn't wait sometimes to hang up the skates and pick up the lacrosse stick. And he wasn't getting worse at hockey by playing lacrosse. He was getting better at hockey by playing lacrosse. And that's why a lot of these kids you'll find excel in other multi-sport experiences. So again, unforced errors are going to hurt both teams. That went off the long stick there, and back to Conard. Those are the kind of plays when coaches go and review film, they just makes their stomach get in a little bit of knots, and for the kids too when they're looking at it, because they wish they could get those back. They tend to be just mental errors, and nobody's trying to make those mistakes, but that's what's going to separate teams from winning or losing.
Ken Conard still up 2-0. 5:20 to go here in the opening stanza. Good year for the Hall Warriors as well. We talk about them qualifying for the tournament. They're at 6-7 on the season. A nice turnaround after 4-12 a year ago. And Coach Ben told me he learned a lot in this being his second year as opposed to year #1 last year.
Well, good coaches never stop learning. And Coach Vaughn is a sponge. And for just having got to know him so well, he lives for his kids. Wow, that's a nice little shot in the upper right-hand corner there.
From the angle. Henry Neidl that time, the second leading scorer, and he becomes the second Conard Chieftain in the 2017 season to hit the 20-goal plateau.
Yeah, good for him. It's interesting. I went to see the Hall Conard final basketball game, and Henry went in as a senior starter to match up against Matt Brock. And I would guess he's nothing more than 5'8", 5'9", and Brock, who's being recruited Division I at 6'6", 6'7", he absolutely had shut him down for the first 4 or 5 minutes, and he was doing so well. He drew 2 charges, and he came out of the game because he hadn't played that long all season. I remember going up to Coach Leghorn afterwards and said, "Why did you take that kid out?" He goes, "He asked to come out because he wasn't used to playing that much." So obviously you see his athleticism, but I was really impressed in those first few minutes of that basketball game with how Henry handled himself out there, and nice to see him get his goal right there. It's a nice shot.
Steve, talk about the similarities, if you would, between the footwork. Both of the coaches for this team told me that basketball and lacrosse footwork seem to go hand in hand.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. I had I coached girls lacrosse for 4 years, and let me just be clear that girls lacrosse is different in the same way that rugby would be to football. It's, you know, a lot of times people think of boys and girls lacrosse as the same game. They are very different in a lot of ways, but the similarities to basketball, definitely the links are there. I mean, even right now, you can see the man-to-man defense that's being played. Mm-hmm. It's still ball, me, goal principles, right? That's a nice save by the goalie there. Oh, tipped it up. And you're always trying to keep yourself between the defender. You're also trying to cut off passing lanes. You have to communicate because you can screen. There's back cuts. So in terms of defensive positioning, you have to be, your head needs to be on a swivel at all times. You close out under control in case somebody fakes and goes by you. So very similar. So I coached for 4 years, quite frankly, without a stick because I couldn't teach the girls the stick skills that they hopefully had developed by the time they got to the high school level, but I could teach them positioning and spacing.
I'm sorry, that was a tremendous save by Horner, by the way.
Great save, but once again, Hall does a good job getting a defensive stop, but they don't reward themselves by clearing the midfield on the Conard redefend. And it wasn't all that aggressive a redefend. Again, I would call that an unforced error more than anything else. So Hall really needs to protect the ball better if they're going to climb back in this game.
That's 3 times, I believe, already, Steve, that they've made the transition pass into an error.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think, you know, as coaches, you work on that all the time, and you put the kids out there. They know what to do. They just have to execute. You know, at the quarter, coach will talk about that. Value the lacrosse ball. Take your time. Make sure we get it at least over midfield so we can get into our sets.
Nice catch, and the shot goes wide. It was taken by Grant O'Connor, the junior.
Guys, where should I hang these up?
Well, that's a deep shot from that far, but again, it's going through people, so you don't know if the goalie's blocked out at all, and when you take that long shot, you hope that he is, and you might get a bounce and a flick in.
But then people won't be able to.
Again, Conard keeping it on the perimeter. They come to the near side to John Gibbons. Back of the net to Hollerback.
Good patience by Conard here. They're not trying to force things. You can see these boys use both hands very well. They might catch on the right side, reverse with the left hand. You know, some of them feel more comfortable with one side than the other, but the kids who are going to play at the next level, they're certainly going to use both hands. It's another goal right there on a deep bounce shot by number 5.
Grant O'Connor getting his 14th of the season. He nearly missed about a half minute ago, and this time he's able to connect. You're alluding to good fundamentals, I'm sure, and that's one thing that head coach Matt Sersasimo talked to me about on the phone. So this is a very fundamentally sound team that he's got.
Yeah, obviously you can see that they're very patient. They're not trying to force the ball into play. They're just passing perimeter. I'm not seeing anything too creative. I think that Hall's certainly going to need to put a lot more pressure on these deep shots because all of the shots have come from range, not off of set plays with cutters or back screens. So it's really going to be important for the Hall kids to put more pressure on those shooters so they can't get their hands free.
John Lagoy, the face-off specialist, now 3-1 on the afternoon in the circle. Aaron's shot goes wide at the 128 mark for the opening stanza. Conard enjoying a 4-0 advantage.
Well, that was interesting there in that it was a long stick that was up on attack, who typically should stay back. But because I believe he was on the draw and the way the possession went, he found himself on offense. And instead of coming back and trading with the midfielder, he went in, found himself open, unmarked, and he almost got himself a goal with the long stick there.
Now the play from behind the net. Hollerback with the pass. He's able to find outside John LaGoy. Now back outside to John Gibbons. Again, patience on the perimeter for the road team.
Yeah, you can see Hall's extending their defense a little bit more, trying to put a little more pressure.
Off the goalpost that time, Steve.
Yeah, that was he certainly got beat on that defensive slide.
Like anything involving art or anything.
It looked like a crease violation of some sort from Conard.
So one of the few breaks here for Hall in the opening quarter.
Yeah, and again, so this is going to be just a function of seeing how patient they are once they get this. You know, if they can get one goal going into the quarter, because of that violation, Hall was given the ball at midfield per the rule and, didn't have to deal with the redefend. But one goal heading into the quarter makes it only a 3-goal game at the quarter break. That could really change momentum in a lot of ways. So right now, that's what Hall is looking for.
Graham Kennedy took the shot, and that goes wide.
Because it was a shot and not a pass, it's whoever is first or closest to the ball when it goes out of bounds. So that's why Hall is going to gain possession. Had the referee deemed that to be a pass, which obviously wasn't, then it would have gone over to Conard. So with 10 seconds to go, they're going to try to get some sort of ISO and get a deep shot. I'd like to see a screen here. Trying to free his hands. He's got 3 seconds, not sure that he knows. And it doesn't look like they'll get a shot off.
And time expires here in the opening quarter. And 1 quarter in the books. Your score is Conard 4 and Hall no score. The War Chief Sports Council would like to thank our many fine sponsors, including those at the all-state level. Keating Insurance, Macca Plumbing and Heating, Reed and Reach PC, Counselors at Law, ESPN, College Prep Express, and the McConnell Family Law Group. Thanks to one and all for your sponsorship of the War Chief Sports Council. And for more information, you can go to their website at www.war-chief.net. That's war-chief.net. Steve, impressions of the opening quarter?
Well, I think Conard's got to feel pretty good about where they're at. I mean, you know, mathematically you'd say they're on pace to win 16-0. That never happens in sports, obviously. But what we've got to make sure happens, from an opposition standpoint as a coach, is figure out what led to the amount of possession time, which I would imagine Conard probably possessed maybe 70% of the time, and then the unforced turnovers. Also, there needs to be some awareness of the kids, how much time's on that clock. Granted, their back was to the clock. The fellow had the ball at the end behind, but the whole team should be working hard to get a shot off there near the end of that quarter.
Matt Sursasimo, his first year as the head coach, had a nice opportunity to talk to him on the phone last week. He played for Bill Condon, who, of course, had a quarter century at the helm of this Conard Chieftains program, and it was actually Coach Condon that reached out to Matt and asked him if he'd be interested. It's almost like he was hand-selecting him for the job, and what an honor for him. He was one of his first players that he had, played in 1992 to 1996 for Coach Condon at Conard.
Sure. So, you know, I got to know Bill Condon when I first moved here from Seattle, and Bill was running an alternative program for kids who were at risk over at Conard High School. And as a counselor, he was one of those veteran teachers that really took me under his wing. And I got to know Bill over the years through that experience, and always valued him as an educator. Because as coaches, that's what we are. We're educators. The Sursasimo name is certainly one that we all know well. I had the chance to become friends with Megan through our rivalry, coaching girls lacrosse, and obviously Matt being the son of another Matt. Everybody knows that name, and he's got a great reputation. Obviously, as a first-year coach, to come out, if he could, 500, make states. That's a good first campaign that you start to build your own culture to build on what Bill had done over the years.
Well said. As we can play here in the second quarter, Chieftains trying to build on that 4-0 advantage.
Well, right there, I mean, in sports we talk about having urgency. I would say Hall nor Conard had any urgency there. There was 2 different opportunities for both teams to gain possession, and neither really went for it like it was the Hall-Conard game like I would expect. It wasn't that emergency, like we have to get possession. Hall had an opportunity right there. All right, let's earn this back. Let's gain some momentum. But Conard won what we call 50-50 balls.
And if they're going to continue to win those 50-50 balls, Steve, it's going to be very difficult for Hall to get any sustained pressure and get back into this game for sure.
Sure. As a lacrosse coach, I would always talk to the girls and say, look, they're not 50-50 balls. They're 100% balls ours. You have to go after it like our entire season depends on it, no matter what the score is, no matter what the time of the game is. You have to play with a sense of urgency because you can't win in this game if you don't possess the lacrosse ball. So you shouldn't be fit. Hall has to approach it much differently than they did on that possession right there. They have to be more aggressive.
Grant O'Connor looking to make the pass. He goes one-on-one against Max Congdon. That's a live ball off the back of the net, isn't it, Steve?
Yeah, it is, and I'm not really sure why the defender handled it the way that he did. So, in terms of that possession, again, we think Hall got a little bit lucky in terms of being able to gain it.
And here's Andrew Crevetti with the ball for the Warriors as he tries to lead the attack. Another errant pass, and it's picked off by the Chieftains. Pass was intended for Barrett Kanega, and it was picked off by Cole Johnson. And Johnson comes away with it, leading Conard on the rush.
Yeah, don't want to overstate it. Crevetti did a nice job of picking up the missed bounce, but just a little too quick to get rid of it there, and led the pass into a dangerous spot. It was a fumble, and again, Conard possessions. They don't have to be in any hurry. They can run 2-3 minutes off at a time if they want, because there's no shot clock, and referees, unlike the college game, from my understanding, do not have to call a stall, which at the college level the referees can give a time in which a shot needs to get off. So Conard could literally possess the ball the rest of the game and still win.
And they score again. Beautiful shot by Grant O'Connor, getting his second of the afternoon.
Yeah, again, it goes back to the missed opportunity of possession. While that goal was scored, Hall probably should still be running offense. It probably happened within 35 seconds of the turnover, and you can't win if you turn the ball over at the rate that Hall is doing it.
You know what I found interesting here? Even after a goal, even with a 5-0 advantage, there's Coach Sersasimo getting 3 players together, barking out the instructions, still teaching, always coaching, all the time.
Look, I'm telling you, this is a game of runs, and if Hall can get a quick one, then the momentum can absolutely change. It's a great effort by the Hall player there, but unfortunately for Hall, the effort goes unwarranted and becomes Conard's ball once again. A really good chance off the face-off there, but I don't know if the sun's a factor, the heat's a factor, but the unforced turnovers are really proving costly.
92 degrees, our game time temperature today. A bit of July or August in mid-May here. And that could certainly, I would think, affect the endurance and the stamina, Steve, of these kids out here today. Yeah,
absolutely. You'll see a lot more subbing in the boys' game than the girls' game. Part of it, right, to start with, you're wearing padding, you're wearing a helmet, and it's a more aggressive game.
And another score, this time by the senior, John Gibbons. Gets his 13th of the season. And minus the extra point for Matt Sersasimo's team, they're up 6-0.
Yes, sir, and you talked about continuing to coach. Matt's biggest concern right now would be mental letdown. That sometimes what happens, as you've seen a lot of sports, is people become complacent with too early a lead. So what I would always do as a coach is take the opportunity of the next break is to psychologically get the kids to play as if the score were reversed. So when they come in, I would say, I do not want you looking at the scoreboard unless you're looking at the score as if they have the goals that we have, and play like that. And that creates this urgency and keeps your focus while you're going. And I'm sure Coach Sersasimo is talking the same thing as these kids come out. Don't let up. Don't take your pedal off. Where Coach Von Meyerhauser is likely trying to do the same thing with his kids. Let's just get one. Once we get one, we can build on that momentum.
7:55 time remaining here in the opening half. Conard up by a half dozen and looking to add to it.
Yeah, in football, a lot of times you worry about time of possession as a defensive coach if the other team has the ball a lot, because on hot days, when the defense is out there all the time, they're going to get tired. So every one of these goals makes it harder and harder for this defense. It's a nice save right there.
Terrific save.
Yeah.
Looked like he got it with the knee pad. Alan Horner. And we talked about the fact his 48% save percentage coming into this one. And you can't fault him on a lot of the goals here this afternoon, and he's made 3 good saves in particular.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I think the defense got to put a little more pressure. Number 22, who we talked about before, just made a nice hustle play to earn, really literally earn the possession there for Hull. I couldn't see it because I was blocked out by the bench. It looked like it might have gone off of him on the effort, but it was almost as if the referees were saying, that dive, that kid deserves that ball, and the Hall has a possession at this point.
For sure, and you're talking about Andrew Crevetti, of course, senior captain, defensive leader. Also somebody who had 30 catches for Frank Robinson's football team during the season.
Yeah, again, a lot of crossover athletes here. I don't know the young man well enough, but a lot of times defenders may have come to lacrosse late. They don't mind picking up the long stick and learning from coaches on how to play this game. Your stick handle doesn't have to be quite as good with the long stick, and so sometimes kids who haven't been playing their whole lives or don't really care about scoring and passing so much, they're happy enough just to go down and play defense. So Crevetti strikes me as that kind of kid.
Talk about the players crossing over, Steve. We also had coaches crossing over. We talked about Coach Vaughn, a longtime assistant for Frank Robinson on the football team. He got Coach Rob to come over and be the freshman coach for the lacrosse team this year. I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, look, if you're going to be it's a good effort by number 11, but again, I think if the difference there is that's straight on for the goalie. He had a line of sight. If that had been a bounce, maybe greater likelihood.
And they score at the other end.
Yeah. So transition defense right there, that's one of the most dangerous spots in lacrosse, right? Again, I think sometimes what happens is fellows come down with the long stick. You think, all right, he's going to dump it off. No one stopped the ball, which is key in any invasion game, whether it's basketball or soccer. You have to stop the ball. Nobody stopped that ball. It allowed him to go in pretty much undefended right on goal and made a good shot with the long stick there.
And in lacrosse, like you see in hockey a lot of times, you have the goaltender make the big save at one end. This time it was Henderson making the stop. And then in transition, Stabnik went all the way down and scored the goal for Conard, and they're upping their lead to 7-0.
Yeah, again, part of what I'm looking at right now on the Hall side, too, is body language, is that, what can happen is it can get out of hand in a hurry if leaders don't step up and say, look, we just need one goal. Let's just get one, then we'll get the next possession. And the last thing you want to have happen is if you start to get frustrated, kids get chippy, and then you get penalties, and the next thing you know, you could be playing down a man. Certainly don't want that to happen.
Violation, I believe, was assessed against the Warriors, so off the turnover. Conard gets it back, and an errant pass intended for John Gibbons goes awry, and now Hall will take over with 5:42 to play here in the opening half.
Yeah. Pete, you were making a point about crossover coaches. I want you to go back to that for a second because we got cut off with the goal there.
With Frank Robinson, I was saying I thought it was really interesting that Coach Vaughn, for so many years as an assistant to Frank football-wise, and he was able to get Frank to come over and be the freshman coach for the boys lacrosse team this year.
Yeah, certainly, Coach Robinson is somebody that I absolutely admire and adore and works with me a lot during our summer programs, and is just a great guy to have mentoring the young kids. I used to talk to Coach Robinson when I would coach freshman teams just about how important it was when you're trying to build the culture of a program, that first experience at the high school can be so important. And I know that part of Coach Vaughn's philosophy is he wants athletes before he wants just lacrosse players. Because a lot of times kids might get exposed to lacrosse. Doesn't mean they're necessarily competitors or kids who are going to help the program just because they've been playing for a while. So his feeling is that if you can get Coach Robinson, who's a great physical educator, who gets all the kids to come out for football, if he can get them to come out for lacrosse, even if it's just for 1 year, get them fall in love with the game, that you're going to get some of those kids who rise up and can help the program down the road, maybe as soon as next year.
The other interesting aspect about this program, the lacrosse program at Hall, is that Coach Vaughn had only 6 kids initially come out for the freshman team, and all of a sudden he's been a master recruiter both of the seasons that he's been the head coach, as a shot has bounced high and wide, and all of a sudden he turned that number of 6 into 20, Steve. And speak about how that can really change things at the varsity level if you can get so many good numbers in terms of volume at the freshman level and build the program up from the grassroots that way.
Sure. So you might know that Coach Vaughn is a TA or a paraprofessional working with special needs kids at Hall. When he had transitioned into coaching, he really wanted to be working daily at the school where he would coach. So he knew that if he could get a job in the school, a lot of times the coaching happens in those experiences that are outside of the field, that happen during the day. Unfortunately, yet another unforced error there by Hall and a midfield turnover. So they're going to have to figure this out sooner than later. But Coach Vaughn is a magnet for kids. Those who know him just know how personable, how likable he is. And when he tells you, I believe in you, I want you on my team, kids want to do that. But there's a blessing and a curse with that. Hall and Conard, boys and girls lacrosse, for the past decade or so has been a no-cut sport. And so what happens is sometimes when kids come out and you
big save by Horner. Excuse me.
Big. That's a huge save, because obviously this could be that momentum shift we're looking for, and we can see if they can get the transition that maybe they're looking for. But what happens is if you get 80 kids out for your program and 14 of them are freshmen and maybe only 2 leave the program, you sometimes can wind up with 12 seniors that you want to give a spot on a varsity. So you have to be really clear, and I've run into this over the years. You don't want to cut kids, but you want to make their role very clear. So the last thing you want is a kid that's at the end of your bench who says, well, I deserve to play because I'm a senior. That's not the case, but you got to find a role for them. And Coach Vaughn and I talk about that a lot. And so it can be blessing and curse, but he's trying to build a culture in this program. And you do that by being clear with expectations for the kids and for the parents, and having a veteran coach like Coach Robinson on your staff will make that easier as he builds this program out.
Well said. 2:10 to go, opening half. And Hall finally on the board. They score. And there's Theo Blashinsky getting his 32nd of the season.
Yeah, you saw how creative Theo was there. He went as if he was going to circle the crease. He had it in a strong right hand as if he was going to come around the backside. I think the goalie took his eye off seeing if there were cutters, and as soon as he saw the goalie's head turn, he sneaked it in with his left hand. It was a crafty play right there.
Yeah, it really was nice. Jack McHale, who's one of the best playmakers for Coach Vaughn's team, gets his 12th assist of the season on that goal to make it 7-1, which is outside of 2 minutes to play here in the opening half. In hockey parlance, we would say beating the goaltender on the short side that time, between his body and the goalpost.
That's right. That was, again, a crafty goal, but unfortunately there was a false start by Hall, so their chance to immediately gain momentum was thwarted just on a little bit of anxiousness there to try to gain that face-off. So the referee called the false start.
Steve, could part of the strategy for Matt Sersosimo here be to perhaps, with 1:40 to go, just hold for the last shot, be content to have a 7-1 advantage?
Absolutely. Certainly you can see that Hall is being forced to extend their defense right now, and as the defense gets extended, you're going to force a lot of draw and dump situations. So if you can beat the one man, which is a lot easier to do because you're going forward, the defender's playing backwards. Once you beat that person, you draw another defender, and then you can make a decision. Do I have it? Like I would say to my girls, is it a slam dunk? If it's not a slam dunk when we have a 7-1 lead, we do not shoot it. That's a slam dunk. It's a one-on-one play. He's got it on a strong hand. The defender's not close enough to get into his hands. Slam dunk. It's fine for Conard to go ahead and take that shot, obviously.
Gabe Suarez on the scoreboard again here this afternoon. And to have that angle that he did from about 15 feet out in front, that is almost definition of the slam dunk, I would think.
Yeah, people can say, well, he was defended, but he was defended just because there's a player on. It's really in lacrosse, you're trying to take hands away. And so if you're allowing a strong right-handed shooter to be able to swing with that pace with their hands free, they're going to be able to pick their spot. And the goalie's literally defenseless at that point because of the distance and how open they are.
And they come back and score again. Yeah. Right off the face-off win. And this was Derek O'Connor able to beat the goaltender. And it's 9-1 with 62 seconds to go here in the opening half. And we talked about the greatness in the face-off circle of John Lagoy for Conard here this afternoon. He's won at least 6 of the face-offs.
Yeah, and again, that's making a big difference. And unfortunately for Hall, Conard's leadership there did the right thing, right? They let up the one goal. Maybe they were hoping for a shutout, But instead of pouting about that and letting Hall back in it, they answer with 2 really quick goals, which then takes a lot of any juice Hall was developing out from underneath them. So you can see there's restraining lines there. So you'd think why aren't kids going in until there's a possession. Until there's a possession on the draw on the face-off, they can't cross that line, or else they'd be offsides.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Okay.
You can see on this field it's red, white, and blue. The restraining line works on both the boys and girls games somewhat similarly, and I'll explain the differences in a bit. Interestingly enough, Coach Sasamo, it looks like, was the one who called that timeout there, because to your point, he might be saying, you know what, we got 48.5. Let's get it to just with the last shots, and don't go in unless there's under 10 seconds.
9-1 the score, and a reminder, this is just the first of our doubleheader here today on Channel 5. We'll have the girls contest coming up, and that should be an interesting one as well, as they'll begin that shortly after 6 o'clock tonight. The Conard girls right now currently 3rd in Class L, just 2 losses on the campaign, while the Hall girls 8 victories on the season after winning just 3 a season ago. So both teams in fine form.
Yeah, certainly I think both teams have to be happy with where they are given where they were at last year. Hall's lost a number of close games. Their record could actually be probably at 11 or 12 wins, despite maybe 4 one-goal games. Conard's reputation around the state has been it's been fun to listen to my old coaching friends just about how much Conard's improved, and I'm really happy for Coach Sasamo and the success she's having. She's a wonderful person and a great coach.
She really is, and plus 100 in the goal differential this year. They've scored in double digits, Steve, in every single contest.
Yeah, they've got some serious weapons on the offensive side, which is going to make it a challenge for the Hall girls tonight. But again, Hall Conard games, you don't always go on records. I mean, certainly if you look at the Hall Conard records right now, you would not have expected an 8-goal lead.
Yeah, for sure. We looked at common opponents. We looked at the records and thought it would be a very, very competitive game here today. And for whatever reason, a big first half for the Chieftains, and they have an 8-goal advantage as Coach C calls another timeout with 26 and 9/10 seconds to go until halftime.
I believe that in the boys' game, it's use them or lose them timeouts, 2 per half. And so what Coach decided to do there is, look, I haven't used yet one. And quite frankly, the reason he didn't use them earlier is because Hall's been really tired. And, why give a timeout, allow for the Hall defenders to rest? And you have to have possession in order to call timeouts. So I'm assuming that Coach Vaughn's theory on this was, look, we have possession now. I'm not going to call a timeout and gain momentum. Boys got to figure it out. So Coach Sasamo saying probably once again, let's settle down. Let's run whatever our set is. Let's get one shot with probably less than 15 seconds is safe enough, because it gives them a chance for a rebound, or if it goes out of bounds, they get possession, maybe could get one more. So it'll be interesting to see if he's drawn something up in particular as a last-second situation.
And again, just under a half a minute of time to play with as they try to add to what is already an 8-goal advantage here in the opening half.
Feel bad for these poor Hall defenders, because they have had to play a lot of minutes in this heat, and they've sort of done it to themselves in terms of the turnovers, but at the same time it's this cycle. I'm not sure that's what Coach was looking for, but as you see, his shot there, he knew if he did miss it, he was likely going to be able to just go back to his man behind the cage. So they've got about 12 seconds left to see if they can get one more shot off.
And here's Grant O'Connor as he's being bothered on the perimeter. Tries to move his way towards the cage, and we see a flag down on the play. Andrew Crevetti was stride for stride with him defensively. He also had some help from Todd Crevetti as well. And the thing for Hall here, Steve, is that I know they're kids and they're resilient, but they have to come back and play tomorrow afternoon against Haddam Killingworth to wrap up the season.
Yeah, likely that would be. We had our first penalty of the game when you saw the flag go up. Again, I think that's a frustration play as much as anything else. Conard's deciding just, you know what, it's 9-1. We don't need to force anything else. We'll just call it a half. Yeah, to have to bounce back tomorrow, it's going to be a challenge. Haddam Killingworth traditionally has a decent program, and Hall's got to figure out this half before they start thinking about that one, though.
Yeah, definitely so. First things first, as it were. So we're at halftime here at Chalmers Stadium as the War Chief Sports Council, in association with Channel 5, continue to present West Hartford High School sports. And your score at the break, Conard 9 and Hall 1. We're going to step aside. Steve Boyle and I come back with second half action right after this on WHCTV Channel 5 and online at WHCTV.org.
How are you, young man? How are you? Good. Enjoying the game? A little hot for you? Yeah. Yeah, it's a fun sport to watch, huh?
Already got the workout program and everything. Yeah. It's a good team though. Still playing TV. Good, how are you? What's your role here? What are you doing there? Ball film. Ball film, good manager.
Oh, sure, sure. Well, tell you what, why don't you come back, if you could, at like 3 minutes on the clock, and we'll do a little 2-4-1 split. Johnny will swing by later now. He's working right now.
I texted him when he was going to JCC. They were invited.
Oh, he's going tonight to work out?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Like it to see you. How's that?
No, it's a lot different.
Yeah.
Hopefully for the better.
How much time you got off?
I go back in 2 weeks.
Here.
Kevin?
No, I mean, is he in the UConn? He should. How long did you do?
Oh, yeah, we're from there.
You know, this surface is pretty good, but when they had the old house, how much time you got off?
I'll have 3 weeks off by the time I go back. For the week we go back, we don't have football. We just have basketball that first week.
Yeah.
So I'll have like 4 weeks off.
Is that part of the football schedule to do classes for like the load?
Yeah. So I only take 1 class a year.
You do like crash. Good for you, man. That's great. Well, hopefully we can turn it around. How'd you guys do?
3 and 9.
I don't want to play in the field.
Well, we got blown out. But they were a much better team than we were. Yeah, we were. Yeah.
Yeah, well, invariably, you have some heat-related injuries, and then they finally got smart. He said in May, June,
I'm
July,
excited.
August,
Yeah, I think it'll be a lot better.
Saturday games.
Can't get any worse offensively.
No, you're gonna get better. I know it. All right, we'll see you. Yeah, starting to fill in a little bit. Their kids start school, believe it or not. And then, let's look at the schedule. This is the last week of July. They have 7 weeks off during the summer. And they have 2.5 weeks in October, 2.5 weeks in Christmas. Good schedule. But when they're starting school, late July, it's 110 to 120 today. And their rule is the AC doesn't work. They just they don't have fire. Yeah. All set, guys?
And welcome back, everybody, to Chalmers Stadium, the War Chief Sports Council and Channel 5 presenting West Hartford High School sports. Halftime winding down of our first of 2 in the lacrosse battles today, and it's been all Conard. They lead Hall by the count of 9-1. Pete Lamoureux along with Steve Boyle. And Steve, we talked a lot about different athletes and crossover sports, and I know that's a concept near and dear to you. Talk about your association with 241 Sports, if you would.
Sure, thanks, Pete. I mean, it's one of the joys of coming and doing these games is getting to see kids. You know, you you called out Jack McHale's name. I knew Jack when he went to kindergarten with my youngest daughter and grew up on the street. And just hearing kids' names like that and seeing them perform at this level, having watched them play in the backyard. So 241 Sports, I think, as you know, our tagline's life's too short for just one sport. That's where the 241 comes from. And it's been an absolutely humbling experience to be able to go around the country at this point and talk about sports sampling and the value of it, and speak at the national level around physical literacy and why kids going back to play and sports sampling is really important.
Absolutely. Talk about some of your experiences. You've been all over the country. You're out west. You were down in the D.C. area. Got to meet the former First Lady, Mrs. Obama. Had to be quite a thrill there.
Yeah, I mean, that's, again, it's so humbling. When I first got asked to go down to D.C., I felt like Jimmy Stewart and Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, and you know, wondering how I got here. But I got here because folks in West Hartford listened, and they believed in the philosophy. At first, it was a little bit of the emperor's new clothes, where parents were afraid because folks were saying, look, if you want your kid to play in high school or in college, they need to play one sport year-round. And I always knew intrinsically and just from personal experience, both as athlete and coach, that was so far from the truth. And I ask people, you know, how many kids do you know that have gone pro from Hall High School in any sport? And nobody can name anybody. But yet how many athletes have come through this school? But I can tell you the kids that go on to play Division I, 90% of them are kids that were multi-sport athletes. I've had a chance to coach a lot of them myself, but most college coaches and all, you know, right now I get a chance to talk with folks at the USOC, the U.S. Olympic Committee.
Yeah.
And they have national governing bodies, and then they have multi-sport organizations like Boys and Girls Clubs and YMCAs, which are some organizations we work with. And everyone's coming out now with policy statements for youth sports to say kids should not be specializing before age 12. There are exceptions where, depending on the sport, like gymnastics, where maybe it's appropriate because of the age at which kids start to perform at a high level. But those are exceptions, and we can't use those as the rule. The other thing is I've been listening. We've had a guy named John O'Sullivan who started Changing the Game project on our advisory board, and he was interviewing David Epstein, who wrote The Sports Gene.
Sure.
And they were just talking about the fact that, you know, kids that are going to be successful in life, it's going to be because of youth sport experience, and that we can't be cutting kids out of that experience because they're not performing that great at age 8. So look, the game has just started already, and I didn't even notice. We got talking so much. And Conard has already made the score 10-1.
After a 9-1 advantage that they had at halftime. To further elaborate, how can people learn more about 241 Sports, dude?
Well, certainly our website is 241sports.com. I'm trying to be as active as possible on Twitter, Steve at 241 Sports, and all our handles are at 241 Sports.
Very good. Best of luck. Continued success with that.
Thank you. I had a chance to talk with Jason Siegel, the athletic director for both Hall and Conard, between the break. He did say that the referees and the coaches agreed to an extended break there. Normal halftime would have been 2 minutes shorter, and they are extending the time between the quarters to give kids a water break. There's a much needed face-off for Hall, but they immediately give it away in another unforced error.
Serdechny had the goal for the Conard Chieftains, so a multiple goal effort for him as well, as he is now up to 23 goals in the 2017 season, leading the attack for Matt Zursasimo's Conard Chieftains. 10-1 the score, just underway. Third quarter action here at Chalmers Stadium. Glad you've joined us on this hot afternoon, whether you're watching on Channel 5 or online at WHCTV.org.
That goal's a tough one for Hall to handle because, you know, you hope you get a impassioned speech at halftime and kids come out ready to see if they can start to chip away. Maybe you get it to 5 by the quarter and you think you got a chance, but that immediate goal within seconds of the face-off makes it a challenge in terms of just body language and energy for the Hall kids who have been playing a lot of defense this game already.
Yeah, we make the analogy, we say in hockey all the time, as they score, again, those goals, Steve, in the first minute and the last minute are always backbreakers defensively and big boosters offensively as Conard makes it 11-1.
Yes, can make all the difference. And, you know, as a coach sometimes in these situations, the biggest enemy right now is the clock, right? You hope sometimes you can do some things to to allow it to expedite if you can't get to a point of being able to get yourself back in the game. In the girls' game, the clock would actually be running right now. They have a kind of a mercy rule that if it gets to 10 goals, the clock will continue to run. For the boys, that'll happen at a 12-goal differential, probably because, based on research, there's a greater likelihood to be able to come back because of the quick and higher scoring that happens in the boys' game.
Sure. John Gibbons had the last goal for the Chieftains, assisted by Grant O'Connor. And it is, as Steve talked about, a double-digit advantage for the road team. Conard has defeated Hall every year since 2011. May 25th, 2011 was the last time the Warriors able to beat the Conard Chieftains in lacrosse, and there's something similar on the girls' side the last couple of years, but not as prolonged. Certainly during the end of your tenure, you were able to get some wins against the crosstown rival.
Yeah, but quite frankly, I mean, you know, as coaches, we're often only as good as our players, and I was blessed with a lot of good players. I certainly would not deem myself to be a better women's lacrosse coach than Meg Sasimo, who played it in college and coached it at the collegiate level and lives the sport in ways I can't even imagine. So I had incredible talent, and as a result was able to eke out wins in all the times that we played each other. But she's had that advantage over another wonderful coach in Meg Chaplin over the past few years.
Meg, of course, worked in tandem with yourself.
Yes, so Meg, I had was one of those friends who had coached with my wife in the youth league and who I'd gotten to know, and her daughter was a standout player when I took over the program. And I begged Meg to be my assistant, but the person who ultimately made the decision was her daughter, who finally gave her blessing, and I think it's changed Hall lacrosse history as a result.
Tremendous save as Horner stays in the game for Hall. It's funny how kids have that influence sometimes, huh? Or a lot of times.
I remember telling my daughter, who was freshman at Hall, that I had put my name in for the job, and she laughed at me. As if, you know, and in all honesty, she probably deserved to, because the only year I had ever coached girls lacrosse was the year before at the 5th and 6th grade level with my wife. I just knew it was so similar, though, to the other sports. And I've always felt you don't coach a sport, you coach kids. Mm-hmm. So what I love about taking over a program is building a culture, building a team, getting kids to believe in something beyond what they might have thought they could do otherwise. And I was blessed to have some really good players in that particular program where I could build something special.
No, you're too modest, because I've heard nothing but great things about you.
Well, seriously though, Pete, I mean, I was probably 12 to 15 deep with kids I could put in a game, and I didn't worry about unforced errors and turnovers and what have you. So right here, speaking of unforced errors and turnovers, this might be one of the longest possessions we've seen Hall have in a long time. So, you know, what they need to do is really give their – all right, so they're going to gain possession, so they get to keep running the clock. What they're doing right now, more than anything perhaps, is they're giving their defense a little bit of a rest. These poor kids have been out there on the defensive side trying their best because the offense hasn't run enough clock to let them catch their breath in this heat.
Here's Monis trying to work his magic from behind the net. And that's a great point. You talk about the heat, Steve. It's got to be, we talked about 92 degrees as our game time temperature. Probably another 10 or 15 degrees warmer down on the field right now.
Yeah, again, Coach Siegel said they talked about it as a crew. You talk about it with your training staff. It'll obviously be a little bit cooler for the girls' game as the sun goes down. But they had some cloud cover when they were making the decision, so coaches agreed, no, it's fine. Athletic trainers are ultimately going to make that decision. It's a good little effort there.
By Jack McHale?
Yeah.
Your neighbor.
He's recently moved, but
okay.
he's
Your former neighbor,
yes,
right?
exactly. Yeah, great family, and a lot of good people on both of these. A lot of kids who have come through our camp from both sides on these teams. Simplicio boys, the Gibbons from Conard.
Nice move by Nolan Tibble that time for the goal.
Yeah. And Tibble scores a nice goal there, gets a little something afterwards, and comes up and kind of energized. He was a little annoyed with the extra hit at the end, and that's the kind of thing that maybe gives the Hall kids some energy and says, let's go. He's a young transfer athlete, gets a nice goal, gets up with a little moxie. Maybe that'll put some energy into the Hall kids at this point.
And another multi-sport athlete as well.
Absolutely.
Had 8 catches, Steve, for 89 yards and a touchdown against Southington this fall.
Even as a little kid, he was just one of those boys that liked to play, and you could tell it didn't matter what sport he was going to do, he was going to be good at it. And I like to see him get that goal out there. Coaches I've known that have had him just say he's just a fun teammate, always in good spirit and good energy, and nice to see him get a goal for Hall there. And, maybe, again, 6 minutes to go. If you can get 3, then all of a sudden you go in and say, you know what? It's not the craziest thing in the world to think we couldn't climb back in this. But you got to get back-to-back goals in order for that to happen. You can't trade at this point.
Down by 9 still. On the attack, Derek O'Connor. A handoff. Serdechny in front. Beautiful pass, and the shot goes just wide. A great setup from Serdechny to Gabe Suarez, who's looking to finish off the hat trick from in close, and it just went wide.
And there's the basketball defense again, right? So poor communication on the screen. Both players went with the screener. Defender came off. Somebody slipped back door because there was a slide defensively, and the next thing you know, that young man was wide open and just missed one he'd like to get back there.
Max Condon taking it down the field for Hall, and now Chris Monis, all-state soccer player as well as a good lacrosse player, gets it back outside to Blashinsky. Theo had the first half marker for the Warriors. Back to the net.
You can see the Conard kids even are being way more aggressive on ball with the defenders. You can tell they're paying a lot of attention to Blashinsky. Probably that was certainly in their scout and their game plan, though. A lot of times what you do is you say, look, we'll help and recover off of some folks, but we do not want him to get the ball. If he does, he's what we call a live player. Flag just went up. It'll be interesting to see. It's obviously going to be against Conard because they haven't stopped play. So,
long shot. A good save that time by Ramsey Henderson.
Yeah. Probably too deep without a bounce shot. It's going to be pretty easy for the goalie to zero in on that. To me, that looks like a tired shot, just, and with given the heat. You want, as an athlete like Theo is, to try to get back in it as quickly as possible. The other thing he probably knew is, look, he saw the flag, knew that even if he misses or it gets saved, he's going to regain possession. So he makes a decision there probably because of time and score and situation. So it's probably not all that bad a shot, because if he gets the goal, you're still going to get the flag. So now they're going to play man up. And what you want to do is make sure you don't miss this opportunity, because it'll be the first time all game, if Hall can score, that they'll have back-to-back unanswered goals.
And again, it's a 1-minute power play advantage for the Hall Warriors as they continue to pass on the perimeter. That pass eluded Blashinsky, goes back and gets it. You talked about having the scouting report for him and to try to stop him. Great save that time by Henderson. Is there an equivalent in lacrosse defensively to like a double team in basketball?
Yeah, absolutely. So let me just speak about what happened there before we go there, Pete. Again, you'd see that probably 80% of the counter goals have been bounce shots because it's a real challenge. I think the saves that the goalie's getting here, they've been straight on. It's really like playing catch. Now you're throwing me a really hard pass, but I can catch hard passes, fast passes. If you're bouncing them at me, they're going to be hard to handle. So you want to treat it like that. If you notice, Conard was playing a zone, because when you're man down, you can't cover everybody.
Right.
So they did a nice job of keeping Hall in front of them and forcing that errant shot. So in terms of basketball double teams, so right now if you look out, we've got they're playing even, and so what you can do in situations if you're trying to catch up, it's a little early for it, is you go for your double teams and you use the goalie as that extra sort of defender.
Oh, okay.
So because again, I think Hall wants to get a lot of passes back, because the goalie right there made a nice little, picked up a nice errant shot or pass, and then just gave it right back. So now his kids have to play more defense, unfortunately. So if you were to go ahead and double team the ball, then you cover the adjacents, and the goalie can play the last person. And so they become sort of an extra defender in your cycle. But at some point, that becomes exhausting.
Sure.
But right now, if we were to double team, people need to slide and rotate and cover that adjacent pass. put some pressure on him, force what just happened there, force that error.
Horner's transition pass goes to Congdon. And another pass downfield that goes awry. That was intended for Barrett Kanega that time. Pass from Jack Murphy, the sophomore defenseman.
We do have a flag on the play. I don't know if it was an offside situation. Sometimes that can happen in transition. Trying to see. It appears they're going to be giving Hall the ball, despite the fact that we had another and I say we, and I apologize, having spent 20 years at Hall. It's just force of habit.
Understandable.
I hope that I'm coming across as objective as possible, and I know that sometimes that's difficult. So apologies to my friends at Conard if I say we, and I do obviously respect both schools so much and the coaches so much. But in this case, it's gone to Hall, and it looks like it probably was some sort of offsides. Oh, I've just been informed it was a cross-check that we did not see up here, and that was an automatic turnover back to Hall.
With 2:10 to go here in the third, as Steve talked about before, the Warriors going for their first back-to-back goals of this game. They're down 9. And the shot goes deflected wide. It's actually picked off, and back on the attack come the Chieftains. Head manning pass goes to Serdechny. Man down for the Hall Warriors, writhing in pain at the 26-yard line. And that's Evan Duzan, their senior captain and defenseman. He lunged that time, Steve, towards Serdechny, and I think he took an errant stick, perhaps.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I was looking away to see transition, so I didn't see exactly what happened. But you hate to see a senior on senior day go down with any sort of injury. Not having seen exactly what happened, I can't speak to whether or not it was something that was. I did look quickly and saw that the referee had sight of whatever happened and how it happened. It didn't appear to be a penalty of any sort or any sort of foul play, so to speak.
No.
So this is good news. Evans up on his feet. Looks like he might have just gotten the wind knocked out of him, and hopefully he'll get back in the game soon enough after they check him out for any injury, concussion, things like that.
1:43 to play here in the third with the clock stopped and Conard in front by the count of 11-2. Chieftains led 4-0 at the end of one. They outscored Hall 5-1 in the second. They had a 9-1 halftime advantage. They've outscored the home team 2-1 here in the third for their present lead of 11-2. The War Chief Sports Council would like to thank their many fine sponsors, including those at the captain's level, including Hartford Distributors, Franklin Fine Beers, Cork and Bottle, the Babe Ruth Organization, Coastal Tool and Rob Ludkin, and the Conard and Hall PTO. Thanks to one and all for your sponsorship of the War Chief Sports Council. For more information, go to their website at war-chief.net. War-chief.net as play is back underway.
Yeah, it looks like the trainer checked out Evan, and he's not spending any more time with him. You know, in today's world, especially if the trainer doesn't see it, you want to make sure that there was no contact to the head and do quick concussion check as much as anything. And obviously, you know, when you get a kid out of the game who's been in most of it, you also want to check for any heat symptoms as well. But that will look like, you know, the way Evan came off, he should be good to go. Conard's in no hurry with 1:08 to go, as we saw with the lead in the first half. They're really extending the defense, creating these isolations. Now you have to draw a defender, little touch pass that just didn't quite get to the target. But that's what they're trying to do, draw the defense out because they know they need to with the lead and just dump it into somebody who could be wide open underneath.
Hall on the counter. This is Congdon with the ball. Gets it ahead to Tibble. He has a goal in this third quarter. And he throws it back to Theo Blashinsky.
So it looks like Hall is doing their own version of wanting to just get the last shot off, set something up good, give their defense some extended rest going into that last period. It's probably got to be on Coach Vaughn's mind that he has a game tomorrow night as well. So you're going to make some decisions about resting your defense at this point. Normally you try not to think ahead, but down 11-2 on a hot day when you just don't seem to have it, you probably are going to make some decisions about your next day. through your personnel choices and your game style choices. You never want to give up on a Hall Conard game, but down 11-2, knowing he's got states ahead of him, you don't want injuries, and you certainly want to be ready to win tomorrow to help your seeding in state.
Modest there being bothered by LaFonte, and you hear the buzzers sounding, ending the third quarter. So again, Conard outscores Hall 2-1 here in the third, and they increase their advantage at the end of 3. The Chieftains 11 and the Warriors 2, as you continue to watch West Hartford High School sports here on WHC-TV Channel 5 and online at WHCTV.org, as presented by the War Chief Sports Council. And the council would like to thank its sponsors at the varsity level, including Low Tide Photography, Blue Plate, Dave Newman Photography, Fast Eddie, West Hartford Youth Basketball, West Hartford Travel Boys Basketball, Open Arm Christian Ministries, Final Cut Barbershop, Edward Connors Insurance, Stanley and Elaine Phillips, Beth Barry Brown of the William Ravis Agency, and West Hartford Girls Lacrosse. Thanks to one and all for your sponsorship of the War Chief Sports Council. Pete Lamoureux along with Steve Boyle and our fine Channel 5 crew. Is Jen back on the dials, back at the studio today? Meredith and Diana by our sides here today doing their usual stellar job, braving the 92-degree heat that has affected not only the players, but the broadcasters, the fans, everybody involved. But, Steve, what a celebration of the sport of lacrosse when you can get these 4 teams together for a doubleheader like this. Nice crowd on hand today. Just speaks volumes to the growth of the sport and the great support in the West Hartford community.
Yeah, absolutely. The stats for a long time have been that lacrosse has been the fastest growing sport in the United States, and there's good reason for it. When lacrosse is played well, there's really I know they call soccer the beautiful game, but I have always thought lacrosse is the athlete's game. It's really it's a great competitive sport where there's not a lot of nuance, right? In sport like basketball, it's more nuanced than this. For me, 50-50 ball, who wants it, go get it. There's not a ton of things you have to do in terms of crossover dribbles and behind the back and spin dribbles and out of bounds plays and transition fast breaks and defense. There are those things, but this is more raw. It's more authentic, if you will. And as most folks know, it's America's sport. It was invented by the Native Americans.
It is a great sport, and a good afternoon for Conard playing it as they lead by the count of 11-2. Hall the first possession here in the fourth and final frame. Nolan Tibble with the ball along with Jack McHale as they play catch on the perimeter, looking to set things up for the Warriors.
Obviously we weren't in either of the coaches' timeouts, but I have to imagine that the Hall coach said 0-0. Coach von Meyerhauser said, look, let's not try to win this game. Let's try to win this quarter. And if you can reset yourself from a mindset standpoint, it really gives you an opportunity to get something good out of what was otherwise a bad experience.
Here comes Conard on the attack off the turnover. LaGoy had started the rush. Henry Neidl chases it down, and he is driven down hard by Max Congdon behind the net. Max looks up in disbelief when he sees the flag down.
Yeah, and this is what can happen when you're down and you're tired and you're playing your crosstown rival, is you get frustrated and you make mental errors as a result of that. And it is a sport that sometimes culturally aggression you think is part of what you're trying to do, but your aggression has to be controlled, has to be smart. You have to make good choices. And Max will look at that film and recognize, yes, indeed, that was a cross-check in the back, and that's a penalty, and it's going to cost his team to play man down for a while.
Talk about all in the family, if you would. Max's sister, Tori, we'll see her. And she is called, by the way, Tori, as we preview the girls' game, the best freshman that Hall has had since your daughter, Alana, was on the team. That's what Meg Chaplin said.
Well, that's very generous of Meg, and certainly Congdon family are great. The youngest daughter, Abby, for whom the famous Abby Dabby ice cream is now named, has been a longtime camper of ours as well, and good multi-sport family, and So it'll be fun to watch Torrey play in that game. So at this point, Conard took advantage of that man-down situation and were able to add another tally to put it to 10.
And Gabe Suarez, the beneficiary that time, able to complete the hat trick here this afternoon for the Conard Chieftains. Gabe, just a sophomore, another football player for Matt Sersasamo.
Yeah, you'll see with Coach Sersasamo being the head football coach and Coach Robinson now being in the lacrosse program here. That's a nice save there because it was a good little goal.
Great stop by Horner as he was able to beat Daniel Manger, getting his first time in this afternoon for the Conard Chieftains.
Yeah, this will be an opportunity for both coaches to get some kids into the Hall Conard game so they can talk about that experience. Right there, you had a situation where that the Conard shooter did a really nice job of moving the goalie with a couple of fakes, and I was sure it was going to be a score because of how well he did that. But goalie kept with it and was able to make a nice save there and give his team a chance to keep it at 10.
Again, you'll see the score in the paper tomorrow, and could have been a lot more lopsided if it weren't for the play of the junior goaltender, Alan Horner, who Coach Vaughn says is just an incredible hard worker and has really evolved into a terrific netminder for his team.
Yeah, if you're going to build a program, you want to do that with from your goalie forward, because if you have a good solid goalie in a sport like lacrosse where you're not guaranteed possession every time, you want that person to be both a good goal stopper but also a good defensive communicator, because that person gets to see everything. And I know that Coach Vaughn is working with him on that piece as well, because he gets to anchor the defense.
He was a backup last season and has certainly evolved into a terrific starting netminder this year.
I got to give Conard a lot of credit. They've really had a good game plan. The defensive pressure that they've applied has really done a job of stopping some prolific Hall scorers into taking long-range shots without much. And there's a perfect example, right? Just getting in front of their hands, making all the shots challenged and difficult, and then just doing a better job in transition.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Steve, that was my next question to you. As they turn that great transition, that initial pass, turning defense into offense, and that created a scoring opportunity right to the right of the net that time. Exactly,
and they almost countered, very, very well.
Swing and a miss, strike one.
Yeah, so that can happen. Again, if you're struggling and you're losing your confidence, you rush things and you forget your timing and your rhythm. That's a great effort by the defender there after the miss to try to keep it alive. But unfortunately, the Hall kids weren't ready for the flick back onto the field.
Also, when I said swing and a miss, it was my cheap attempt at a segue to remind everybody that we'll have Mayor's Cup baseball next Monday afternoon, 4:30. Kids always enjoy it, and so do we, Steve. We get to play at the University of Hartford at Fiandella Field. A lot of that situation developed and enhanced by the generous donations of Jeff Bagwell through the years. And we'll be on the air at 4:30. It'll be Jeff Kaplowitz and I, your former partner on the Hall girls basketball sidelines from years ago.
That's right, and the facility over there at the University of Hartford is a real gift that we get to have part of our community. It's wonderful that they get to let us use it for the traditional Hall Conard game. It's still called the Mayor's Cup.
Yeah,
and so that's always a fun experience. And again, anytime it's Hall Conard, a lot of times these kids came up together being teammates, and now they're rivals. And I think it's certainly we have so many good coaches. I know Coach Billing very, very well. He is a longtime friend of mine and a multi-sport coach. And I know he looks forward to that game in a big way.
Had a nice conversation with him and Coach Romby as well last week as we get ready for the broadcast next Monday, and looking forward to that one as well. Mike Matthews at Conard, MVP each of the last 2 years, and he comes back as a senior one more time.
Well, that's always a nice thing when you can have your best player be with you for as long as Conard has. I know that, it's a nice interception for a little transition play. We have a 4-on-3 situation right now. It's very similar to basketball. All right. It was a great little play. That's got
extracurriculars behind the net and no call. Wow.
Very surprising there wasn't a slashing call right there at that point.
Monis took a lot back
completely
there.
Unnecessary. Apparently didn't think it was enough to warrant a flag, but enough to give possession to Hall right there.
Wanted to talk about that last pick that Blashinsky made. I mean, he looked just like a linebacker stepping in front of an intended receiver that time.
Well, and that's the transfer of skills, right? Oh, it's a nice little effort right there. But your analogy is perfect, and it's similar to basketball or even soccer, where somebody tries to throw what we call a flat pass. Those flat passes are the most easy to intercept because you can read them, and they take a long time to get from one spot to the next. So we often talk to kids about creating angles for your teammates so that those passes don't happen that way.
Kyle Conlon on the field for the Warriors.
Yeah, Coach Terry Conlon's his father has been part of the Hall football program for a number of years. And Kyle, I believe, is another one of those seniors who's recognized today.
There's Blashinsky from downtown getting his second goal of the afternoon. And his 33rd of the season. And that elusive first back-to-back goal is probably a little too late at this point, but it gets hauled within 9. It's 12-3 at the 5:34 mark here in this fourth quarter.
Yeah, and because of the penalty from Conard, Blashinsky was able to reward himself with the steal by getting his second goal of the game on a nice shot that appeared to be shielded by the Conard defender, blocking the goalie off from being able to see that line coming on in. So again, for a coach, what you want to do is see if you can't get a little bit of momentum going into tomorrow. That face-off, there was a penalty there, so it's going to go to Conard, who again will be in no hurry to score at this point.
And again, it's a 9-goal game, Steve, so one aspect is not going to be more important than another in the final analysis here this afternoon. But a terrific job, again, to give credit to Lagoy in the faceoff circle. It was big, especially early on. Part of the reason why it was allowing his team to go out and establish that early lead that they did.
Yeah, it's sort of like a prize fight, right, where you want to do body blow, and really tire out your defender, the person who's your opponent. And I think all those draw controls, I keep calling them draw controls from the girls' side, all those face-offs really were body blows to the Hall defense, and it really wore them down because every time Conard gains possession, Hall's then up against the ropes, and they've got to be up against the ropes until they either get a stop or they get a save. But instead of that happening, they were getting goals and then getting up against the ropes one more time.
Sure. It was just adding to the whole effect. And speaking of the face-off man in particular, that was Lagoy taking that last shot. It was errant, but it will be Derek O'Connor putting the ball in play for the road team.
Yeah, and you'll see sometimes in situations like this in final minutes that coaches might want to have your seniors out there. You might be trying to get a kid a goal who hasn't had one in a long time or for the season, and you run some special sets to get that young man a chance to score in the Hall Conard game. Not knowing both teams well enough, I can't speak to that, but often that's what will happen in situations like this.
And to your point, Steve, Lucian Mark, one of the players now on the field for Conard, getting his first touches this afternoon.
Yeah. So, I was a walk-on in college and and there he was, had a chance.
Mark had an opportunity, big-time stop that time.
Yeah, see, that's a pipe. So we did have a flag. So this is what we don't want to have happen, right? It's Hall Conard. Teams are getting frustrated. You just want the kids to go home safe and not have anything dangerous happen. So Hall just got another little chippy penalty there. And referees want to take control and call anything that would be deemed over-aggressive.
Owen Hendricks had the glorious opportunity for Conard, could not convert. Owen, one of 8 seniors on the Chieftains, playing in their final Conard Hall lacrosse match this afternoon. The others include Jacob Conrad, the backup netminder, Samuel Lafonte, Lucian Mark, who had that opportunity about a half-minute earlier, Henry Neidl, Coleman Werner, John Gibbons, and Sebastian Suarez. Wanted to mention Sebi Suarez just for a second, if we could, Steve. I was at one of the football games doing my scout work for the Hall Conard pre-Thanksgiving Day battle, and I was doing spotting work in the press box for Mr. Bill Watson, the fine public address announcer, and just great overall individual. And Sebi Suarez, I called his name 14 times with tackles in the 2.5 quarters that I was there that night.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's incredible, right? That's a kid who likes to be aggressive, and it's why Coach Sasamo and Coach Robinson will be encouraging their football kids to be playing some lacrosse when they can. As I was alluding to before, I wanted to just share that when I was a freshman, I got to play and start a number of games as a freshman in college. And my role changed as our teams got better and they recruited players that were much better basketball players than I, but I assumed a role that was sort of like a coach on the bench. But when I went in, it was always fun to hear people cheering for me to try to at least get a shot off. And if I scored, all the kids in the stand who were my dorm mates would, and that's what it's like for some of these kids out there. When they don't get a lot of minutes, they get an opportunity to score. You'd like to see it happen for them, regardless of the situation.
Good analogy there.
Yeah, and that's sort of the story of the game right there, right? So
Hall
gets a stop. They get a transition play, and not only don't they get a shot off, they turn it over, and now they're forced to play defense one more time.
3 minutes to go as Lucian Mark, the aforementioned senior, brings it up for the Chieftains. Neidl goes with his pass back behind the net. Daniel Manger, junior attacker, back to Mark. And an interception, and back the other way. Kyle McGoldrick, one of 11 seniors for Hall.
Well, this is turning into a true senior game at this point. Both coaches doing the appropriate thing by trying to get as many of them out there as possible for their last Hall Conard moments.
Again, it's 12-3 the score. Conard's been in control from the outset ever since they took a 4-0 opening quarter lead. Held the Warriors to just one goal in the entire first half, and that was pretty much the story in the game. Want to give credit to those other seniors for Hall. Peter Figge, of course, Theo Blashinsky, we've mentioned his name, along with Chris Monis, Will Weberson, Will Miller, Andrew Crevetti, Matt Cashman, J.P. Hers, Kyle Conlon, Kyle McGoldrick, and Evan Duzan. And hopefully Evan's okay. He's standing on the sideline without his helmet, so obviously done for the afternoon after that third quarter injury. Hopefully he's going to be okay and back in the lineup at Haddam Killingworth tomorrow.
Yeah, you assume that's, given the way he looks, he doesn't appear to be struggling in any capacity. It's probably just precautionary, and given the score, why not have him as healthy as possible for tomorrow? All right, so we got a little bit of a flag. It's probably going to be a trip of some sort and go back to Hall. Minute 25. One of these young men would like to get another goal in the tally and get it a little bit closer. You'll notice that Hall has not called any timeouts. They're probably happy enough just to walk away, get some rest tonight, and call it a day.
If Hall gets one more goal, Steve, we'll have the exact same final score as a year ago.
Is that right?
Yeah, when the Chieftains won 12-4.
You're impressive, Pete, when you recognize things like that. You're around sports so much, and it's
easy for me to read, though. But thanks for the credit. But thanks.
Well, it's good. I love the way you get excited for these Hall Conard matchups, and you're so good at what you do. So it's a real treat to be able to be on the air with you. And I'm a total rookie, obviously, and it's nice to learn from pros.
Wow, great working with you, and having you for lacrosse and soccer is a blessing for us, I'll tell you. Blashinsky's shot is blocked. Oh, my.
Yeah, that was point blank at that young man, and thankfully he appears to be okay. Almost as if the ball didn't have a chance to gain its momentum. Number 18, we got to give him a call out.
Yeah, Colbert Johnson.
Yeah, it's That's a brave stop by that young man, and is showing no signs of wear. Maybe it's hurting, and he doesn't want to let Blachinski know it got him.
That could be part of the gamesmanship, right?
Yeah. So usually you go home and you ice that one, and you don't touch it until no one's looking.
Good advice.
Yeah.
Here's Conard with the ball.
Yeah.
In the midfield, Owen Hendricks leading the rush for the Conard Chieftains.
Conrad's done a really nice job on the few times he's had to save on his clears. Has not forced things. He obviously has good stick skills for a goalie, and has once they've earned the possession, he's helped them keep it in transition. So Conard will just run this out. Hall and Conard kids will say good game to each other, and they'll call it another year for this rivalry. Unless, of course, they meet in states by some possibility.
Could happen. Final score, Conard 12 and Hall 3. As they mob each other, the Chieftains do. They win for a 6th consecutive time in the rivalry, and they'll end the regular season in Matt Sursasimo's first year as head coach over the 500 mark at 8-7. As Steve said, they get ready for states down the road. We're going to have a post-game interview with Matt Sursasimo and one of his players. Steve, some final comments on the boys' game.
No, and obviously this was Conard's day. They were the better team in the midfield, on the defensive side, and on the attack. You know, you talk about golf. Are you good in your long game, your driving, your short game, or your putting? Well, Conard was the better team in all 3 areas today, and it showed in the score. So kudos to Coach Sursasimo and the young men from Conard, and good luck to Hall tomorrow as they look to bounce back.
Well said. Thanks, Steve. Steve Boyle joining us. And we'll get ready for the girls' game. But first, our post-game interview in a few minutes or so with Matt Sursasimo and hopefully Sebastian Suarez, or one of the victorious Conard Chieftains. Again, they defeat Hall by the count of 12-3 here at Chalmers Stadium this afternoon in the first of our lacrosse doubleheader. We'll come back with more right after this on Channel 5.
Then you see. There's our blocking this side. You keep moving.
Oh,
and
sorry. She said she walked.
It was getting.
Yeah.
You're doing this one now too, right?
Yeah.
You're doing this next?
That's how a lot of their games were. It's a lot of anger. Yeah, I'm gonna go say hi to Rachel and then go home.
Okay. Oh, yeah?
He said, I think a couple weeks ago, he said, I can't wait for Grandma to come to the game.
Okay. Yeah. You going to talk in that, Paul?
Hello?
What if it was on?
I don't know if it is.
All right. Ben said no.
Oh, okay.
Where are you
So
going?
here,
Sorry, there's just
Where
it
you
gets
going?
so down. It's like and literally it was the next day after the game. It was still. I know. It's like he needs to teach them.
Where are you going?
Walking past
Oh,
back to
okay.
the car that way.
Why that way?
because she's parked over there.
She walked all
I
the way
didn't
around.
get in the...
Okay. Bye, you guys.
Bye. I'm going this way.
Get all the water over there. See all of our water stuff? Get it all.
1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2.
Soft to get all the water all the way over there, please. Off their bed.
Just a heads up, ladies and gentlemen, we will have the Paul and Conard senior recognition session start at about 10 of at the latest. Thank you.
Hey, lady, how you doing?
Hey, I'm good. What about you?
Oh, very well, very well. We made it through. We're almost done. We're almost done.
I know. Okay. So who is
Matt, congratulations. Terrific win today.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Excelling in all facets of the game. One in particular, you talked about Lagoy, your face-off specialist. He allowed you, I think, to get off to that good start because he was so dominant in the face-off circle in the first quarter.
John really is, we like to tell Johnny that he's a momentum builder for us. And if he can execute his job on the face-offs and Sebi on the wings, Paul Wilson on the wings, if they can do their job, they can create possessions for us, which can create momentum for us on offense.
Talk about defensively. You had a game plan to stop Theo Blashinsky, even though he only got on the board twice. Looked like you were able to frustrate him and contain him for much of the day, and that allowed you to build that big lead as well.
Well, he's such a good player, and he's such a good athlete. And when the ball's in his stick, we have to be conscious of that. And I think when that happened, we understood it as a defensive unit that everyone's ears went up a little bit quicker, and our slides were a little bit faster. Everyone was in tune because he can hurt you in a second. If you give him an inch, as you saw in his last goal, he's going to take it and he's going to rip it. So we had to continue to press out on him, and I thought our defense executed very well today. Coach Pfeff, Coach Garneau installed the game plan, and they did a great job executing it. The kids did.
Talk about the offense. I think going forward, as you look forward to the States, Matt, that makes you tough to defend is that you have a number of different weapons that can beat you. And it's not just Serdechny. Saw Suarez rise to the occasion today, and you have others that can put the ball in the back of the net, too.
That's the neat thing. Within the team concept of the game on offense, there's individual performances. And we always try to talk about it being a team game because if one guy's got the hot hand, we want to try to ride that guy. And Gabe, being a sophomore in his first varsity Hall Conard game, really stepped up big and finished the ball for us really well today. So that was good to see, and we got to continue to ride his momentum that he created today. But, it goes to show you how unselfish the offensive players are.
Speaking of momentum, a few weeks back, you had a double overtime win against Northwest. That spurred on a nice winning streak. You're 6-2 since then. You feel good about the team where they are going into states?
Yeah, I mean, I think we continue to take a step forward each day that we come out to practice. We've had some tough opponents recently, but I think we've learned from that. We've grown from that, and I think a little bit of that showed today. And, we're hopeful that we can continue to practice hard, do all the right things on and off the field, and be able to contend when it comes to playoff time.
Best of luck in that second season, as it were.
All right. Thanks, Pete. I appreciate it.
Okay, Matt Sersasimo joining us, the victorious coach here, as the Conard Chieftains winning. We're looking for one of the Suarez boys to come, but
I will go get him.
that's okay. I appreciate that. Before he comes, now you get to go root for the misses.
That's right. The real Coach C.
Come on.
Thanks, Pete. Appreciate it.
Matt Sersasimo, thank you as the Conard Chieftains win. Mr. Suarez, good job today.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
How does it feel to have a big part in a big victory here this afternoon to beat the crosstown rivals, the Hall Warriors?
It's amazing. Since the beginning of my freshman year, I've always wanted to play Hall, and just every day grinding on the practice field, getting better every day, getting those ground balls, creating offense. It just feels amazing to just get this victory.
I was talking to Coach C about the win that you had against Northwest a few weeks back when you won in double overtime. It was a very exciting win. You're 6-2 since then. That was certainly the win that got you guys on your way.
Yes, it was. It was a very tough win, and we just had to. It was the key victory that we just needed to bump ourselves and push ourselves forward to keep going the way we are now.
You gonna stay and watch the girls game?
I think so.
Thanks for joining us. Best of luck in the state tournament.
Thank you.
Okay. So the Conard Chieftains victorious here this afternoon. They win it by the counts of 12-3. And if you're watching live, we'll have doubleheader action for you as the girls will start at about 6 o'clock tonight. Again, it's Hall against Conard. But again, the final score for the final time in boys action today was Conard 12 and Hall 3. Until next time, Pete Lamoureux, thanks for watching, and so long.
Can we please have the Hall senior parents head down to the field? There's an opening in the netting right behind the Hall bench. Please head down there as soon as you can. Thanks.
Gonna take a long time though, because it's done again. Don't worry. Okay. Here you go. Where's the hat, Tom? Come on. And you need me on the white? No, Dennis said he was gonna go there, but the kid said no.
Because once I sat down, like, you're just really hot handing, you know what I mean? Like, especially.
No, I wouldn't say.
No, it's actually pretty cool outside.
Like, this is really like. I wanted a sweater.
Like, I had to do the actual like purpose of the shirt, which is drop the collar so it doesn't break your neck.
I didn't know. We made fries.
I did
Once
not
we
put
got
up
there,
those
because
crazy.
she wants skincare.
Go for it. Don't do it. Oh my god, but she's gonna get it.
Is being televised? It is. Okay.
How first started.
Oh, wow. That's gross. Holy crap. Now you hold it. I think the lenses are supposed to look better.
I was
Now those on.
I was gonna say like
Which ones are you supposed to resolution?
well it's just the handle part and the lens part is that's not so bad. It's the housing.
I haven't tried it yet. I just know the way other guys use it.
Why don't we all just live in a land where it's not just keeping your privacy, but it's just keep
Well, I mean, that's appealing.
it's I feel like I'm upset I don't have privacy.
You want mine?
No, it's okay.
You sure? Okay.
I mean I will
And also these are done too, so. I think that's enough.
Can we have the all parents step onto the field in front of the bench, please?
What's that? Oh, sure.
Can we have the all senior players come over to the sideline, please?
Always something.
Team in red will be as good or more dominant than the boys.
I usually resolution my red zone Yeah.
That's field hockey without lacrosse. That was cold that night. Oh, it is. Yep. Do you know what Mark Walker's daughter looks like? She was supposed to have the checks for us.
I do not know what Mark Walker's daughter looks like. But I will find out.
Mark Walker's daughter, I forget her first name. Mariah?
Yeah,
maybe?
Mariah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I'm wearing a hat.
I do not know what she does. She's Lacrosse.
No. She was supposed to deliver some checks.
Getting the thing where
I will
too
shoot
much
Mark
and now
Stevens.
it's freezing.
Thank you, sir.
And like it's I did make a wise
Be
choice.
baseball mother?
I will be there on Monday.
Like wear a hat.
It does.
But it's
Tired. I drove out to Buffalo on Tuesday.
Oh my gosh.
Drove to yesterday. Then drove to Syracuse.
Coaches, if we can take a minute to recognize the seniors on both teams, we can have the teams to the sidelines, please.
Today was a meeting. Go home and be here.
Thank you.
What we do.
That's dedication after
What we do.
after all the travels you've been through.
What we do.
That was like such a far step too.
Anything you want to know about these kids?
Anything you want to know, but play tennis, right?
Right. Paul Mack was supposed to stop by. Is he around?
Paul?
Yeah.
I talked to him. He said he may come by.
Oh, okay.
I'd like to take a moment to recognize this year's seniors on both Hall and Conard. Right now, we'll start with the Conard seniors. First up, Catherine Blaine. Carly Dorman.
Hockey player, Carly Gorman. Yep.
Faith Haverty.
So, first day on my team. Oh, nice. Coach
Maggie Murray. Maya Feigenbaum. And Gwen Geisler. Congratulations to all the Conard senior girls. Next up is the Hall senior crew. Number 1, Caroline Grant. Escorted by her parents Craig and Ann and her sisters Maggie and Isabel. Caroline will be attending and playing lacrosse at Ithaca College next year. Next is number 7, Sabrina Portal, escorted by her parents Sarah and Joe. Sabrina will be attending and playing lacrosse at Western New England University next year. Next is number 12, Audrey Fromson.
Secretly running away from you.
Escorted by her parents, Tom and Nicole. Audrey will be attending the University of Chicago next year. Next up is number 15, Cammie Cho. Escorted by her parents, Doug and Robin, and her sister Grace. Cammie will be attending and playing lacrosse at Amherst College next year. Next up is number 21, Erica Rothenberg. Escorted by her parents, Alan and Sue. Erica will be attending Penn State next year. And lastly, number 31, Gabrielle Gershon. Escorted by her parents, Abner and Julie. Gabby will be attending Georgia Tech next year. Congratulations to all the Hall seniors and their families. Good luck next year. Next, we'll be calling out the starting lineups for both teams. We'll get to that in a minute. lineup. At midi, number 1, Gwen Geisler. On defense, number 5, Maggie Murray. On defense, number 7, Maggie Venora. At midi, number 8, Jillian Haverty. At attack, number 11, Kate Schaefer. At attack, number 16, Allie Toussaint. On defense, number 17, Faith Haverty. At attack, number 22, Anna Tchaikovsky. At midi, number 26, Maya Feigenbaum. At attack, number 29, Lauren Massaro. On defense, number 43, Catherine Blaine. And in goal, number 74, Maggie Yeza. Now for your Hall High Warriors. At attack, number 1, Caroline Grant. At attack, number 2, Natalie Nordyke. At attack, number 3, Chloe Nordyke. At midi, number 4, Tori Condon. On defense, number 7, Sabrina Portal. On defense, number 8, Olivia Pumperlo. At midi, number 12, Audrey Frompson. On defense, number 16, Margaret Grant. At attack, number 19, Avery Polk. At attack, number 21, Erica Rothenberg. At midi, number 22, Ann Tulakangas. And in goal, number 31, Gabby Gershon. Please stand for the national anthem. Take your hats off. Take a moment. Think about all the brave men and women around the world working hard to protect freedom for us to enjoy a game like today.
And good evening, everybody, and welcome to part 2 of our lacrosse doubleheader. As now it's the girls' turn as the Hall Warriors take on the Conard Chieftains. West Hartford High School Sports on Channel 5, presented by the War Chief Sports Council. Pete Lamoureux along with Steve Boyle and our fine Channel 5 crew. We're at Chalmers Stadium here on the campus of William H. Hall High School. And both of these teams, again, like the boys, headed to the state tournament. And for Meg Sosimo and the Chieftains, another dominant season. 11-2 on the campaign, outscored their opponents by more than 100 goals. And leading the way, Steve Boyle, Ali Touziant.
Ali Touziant. Yes, Ali Congdon as well. And
Congdon on one side, Touziant on the other. And Tori Congdon, as we talked about before, called by Meg Chaplin, the best freshman since Alana Boyle. How about that?
Well, that's a generous statement, if nothing else, obviously referring to my now 20-year-old daughter. I can't believe it. Tori has got the moxie of a scorer. She's certainly been somebody that, like Allie, just has a nose for it and really knows aggressively how to find herself in front of that cage and finish it when she gets her opportunities.
And again, looking at the goal scoring for this Conard team, 11-2 on the campaign. Steve, 192 team goals in 13 games. I mean, that is just absolutely dominant. That's averaging about 15 goals per contest. And look at these gaudy numbers. You have 47 for Fagenbaum. You have 38 for Geisler. You have 26 for Kate Schaefer, 19 for Jillian Haverty. They spread it around, and they just really, really score at just a prolific rate.
Yeah, it makes it a challenge for any defense when you can't key in on just one or two players, because you sort of pick your poison and you try to take the ball out of the hands of who's, what I would call the point guard, who's the general out there. But they've got a lot of point guards and they've got a lot of scorers. So if you decide to focus in on two girls, you got two or three right behind them who can put up big numbers if you take the focus off.
Hall team, on the other hand, sort of a struggle last year, 3-13, but a renaissance season for them. 8-6 for Meg Chaplin's team this year, and they've done it with arguably without their best player, Cammie Cho, who continues to be out with the ACL injury that she suffered during soccer season.
Sure. So losing a player like Cammie, who I had the chance to coach, played a lot of minutes for us when she was a freshman, and unfortunately had that horrific injury to lose not only the rest of her soccer season, but her lacrosse season, which is the sport she plans to play in college. The Hall girls have really done a nice job. What can happen sometimes is when you have a go-to player like they did in Cammie, you get a lot of kids watching. Certainly Tori has come up and has replaced as best she can the shoes of Cammie Cho, but then it's also allowed for some of the more veteran kids to find a role in the offense and spread things around a little bit.
One of the things that Meg Chaplin talked about that's been really eye-opening for her and her team is the fact that beyond Tori Condon, how many great, impactful players they have as underclassmen. They have a ton of freshmen and sophomores making contributions this year, and you can go right down the list. You can go to Chloe Nordyke. You can talk about her. Juliette Larocque. Your daughter, Shaban, who will miss the game with a concussion. Also a sophomore, Maggie Grant. You go right down the list. A lot of freshmen and sophomores getting key minutes, playing big roles, and making a big impact on this team.
Yeah, and that's how you sort of rebuild the program, if you will. Obviously, after the down year last year, you hope that you're going to get some kids that stay with it, don't give up on it, and it's a tremendous coaching staff between, Coach Chaplin, Coach Rachel Tringali, who is a Hall standout when she was here in the 90s, went on to play at Monmouth College, where she was the number 3 assist getter in the nation in one of her seasons, former Division I coach at CCSU. Anytime you have a Division I coach on your staff, you're going to be able to build some players. Jill Gengris, really great role models, and so they're looking to do it the right way. Take your time, build the culture, build on what we've had in the past, and there's a young group that's given them the opportunity to do that.
Meg Chaplin wanted me to point out her favorite statistics of all, as she refers to Grace Polk and Erica Rothenberg. They've caused more turnovers than they've committed turnovers. And she said, in this sport, at this level, that's amazing.
Yeah, that's spoken like a true defender. Coach Meg was in charge of the defense when I was coach, and she was a defender in college. when lacrosse wasn't played by a lot of women in the country, and she really values defense. So the fact that she pays attention to stats like that, you're going to see as part of the culture of a team, and I'll refer to that word culture often as a coach, is, what are the things you value? And she values assist-to-turnover ratios, and she values ground balls and creating turnovers as opposed to giving the ball away.
Back to the Conard side of things, again, 11-2, as we talked about, currently ranked third in Class L, and maybe a potential tournament rematch with Darien that they suffered a big loss to a couple of years back. They have just the 2 blemishes on their record. They lost a tough game to Glastonbury by 1. They were also beaten by Daniel Hand of Madison. This is certainly a team that is a big-time contender in the state tournament, aren't they, Steve?
Absolutely. Anytime you have the amount of scorers that they have, it's going to come down to possession and, quite frankly, what you're doing on the defensive side. You know they're going to get their goals, but really, are they going to be able to keep control in the midfield, make stops when it's important, and then not turn it over in transition? Because if they can get into what we call settled offense, and they can do their thing on the offensive side, the more opportunities they get to do that, the better the chances are they can upset a team like a Darien.
This Conard team defeated Hall in both matchups last year, 15-5 and 13-4. That was en route to a 14-2 regular season last year, and for Meg Sasimo's team, 3 consecutive winning seasons since the 2013-14 season, which wasn't a bad one in its own right when they went 500 during that campaign. You talked a lot during the boys broadcast about building the culture. She's certainly built the culture here.
Well, it's funny, when I first saw Meg coach, I really never saw myself as a girls lacrosse coach. I remember being at a track and field meet that I was coaching in and looking over on the infield, and my wife was coaching in the youth ranks and at the high school level at that point, and I knew girls lacrosse well enough as a dad, but I remember just watching the energy in this practice and looking out at Meg coaching this team. And I think it was probably her first season. I had heard they had had a coach who had played at UConn, who had coached at UConn. It was probably her first year. Little did I know we'd become friendly rivals not many years after that when I took over the helm at Hall. And I was always nervous coaching against her because I knew she'd be prepared. I knew she knew the game a heck of a lot more than I did. And during that time, I think I was just blessed with better players, and as a result, I was able to have the edge. But she's created a wonderful long-term culture. Obviously, they're meeting with consistent and great success, so kudos to a wonderful person and a wonderful coach.
Now in her 7th year at the helm, hard to believe how time flies, that 7 years have come and gone since she took the job as the head varsity girls lacrosse coach here at Conard. The War Chief Sports Council would like to thank our many fine sponsors, including those at the all-state level, and they include Keating Insurance, MACA Plumbing and Heating, Reed and Reed PC Counselors at Law, ESPN, College Prep Express, and the McConnell Family Law Group. And as we mentioned, ESPN, just want to send condolences out to the family of the longtime face of the franchise, Chris Berman, who tragically lost his wife last week. I got a chance to spend some time with the Bermans in terms of Choate Rosemary Hall alumni functions. They had the funeral and ceremonies at the Choate Chapel yesterday, and tragic time for the Berman family, especially the kids, Doug and Meredith, and certainly our hearts and best wishes go out to them.
Yeah, I have a lot of friends that work at ESPN, and certainly he was legendary. And to come on the heels of some of the cuts and that were happening on the staff side, you realize there's a human impact there, but there's no greater loss than the loss of life. And so, again, my condolences as well to the Berman family.
So a few moments before we get things underway, the nightcap of our doubleheader, as it were. The Conard boys triumphant 12-3 in the early contest game that they led start to finish. If you didn't join us for the first portion of our broadcast, they raced out to a 4-0 first quarter lead, led 9-1 at the half, and pretty much had things their own way in what became a more defensive minded struggle in the second half. Matt Sasimo's team ending the regular season above the 500 mark. Both of those teams getting ready for states, and both of these teams getting ready for the state tournaments as well, Steve. And as a former coach, anything in particular that you might be working on or focusing on the week or two leading into the state tournament?
Yeah, I mean, you start this process as soon as you start scheduling, you know, and this is one of those games that is automatically put on your schedule. But what you really want to do is make sure that you have a sense of what the expectations are based on where your team is at. Obviously, Hall is thrilled to have qualified for the state tournament given the season they had last year, but Coach Trisosimo knows that the quality of and combination of players she has only comes across every once in a while. And you really want to take advantage of those seasons where you have an opportunity to perhaps win a state championship. And that's not out of the realm of thinking. Certainly, I think she wishes she could get the Glastonbury game back, because Glastonbury's been both her and my nemesis over the past, decade or so in terms of our work together. But she's probably has a much different approach in terms of this game. Conard's expected to win. Hall is expecting to get better today. And I think that those are the two different approaches that these coaches are probably taking right now.
Looking forward to the tournament from the Conard perspective, Steve. When I was talking to Meg last week, and again, all of these coaches, all four of them today, and 99% of the time, all the coaches through West Hartford, very generous with their time and helping us prepare for the broadcast. And I asked her to describe her team in one word, and right straight out, she said they're mature. And she said that's what's going to serve us well in the tournament.
Yeah, and maturity only happens with failure, right? You have to go through some level of failure in order to have that maturation happen. We don't mature when we constantly meet with success. And so I'm sure it's the Glastonbury and the hand losses that she is able to talk about in terms of, what are we going to do different when we're faced in those situations again. And, she's got good seniors. She's got some young competitive athletes. And again, it's that combination sometimes that you wait for as a coach. And it's up to them to allow that maturity to manifest in success moving forward.
Goaltending matchup today, Maggie Yeza for the Conard Chieftains. She'll be opposed by Gabby Gershon. Gabby Gershon had been sharing time with Maya Borden, but Borden, along with Steve's daughter Shaban, out of the lineup today with injury. And the other great statistic that Meg Chaplin wanted me to convey was the save percentage for Gabby Gershon, 59%. We were talking about the boys game, how 40-something was really, really good. 59% for her netminder.
Yeah, Gabby is just a fun athlete. I was still in the soccer program when she had tried out, and then she came out for basketball. And I think she was one of those kids. I mean, I had Maddie Hooper in the program where she, someone convinced her, come out for lacrosse. And she had never played lacrosse, never mind goalie. And it was the following year upon Maddie's graduation when people were like, look, we need competitive, sort of fearless athletes to take over the net. She's got the perfect personality to be a netminder. You'll see that what she's really good at is stopping the ball, but because she doesn't have the same youth experience in terms of stick skills, that's where she falls short. She's otherwise a top-level goalie, but her capacity to clear the ball is the thing that she's lacking, but she continues to improve upon. I'd love to see her play at the next level if somebody can get that part of her game in line with how remarkable she is at netminding.
So here's Conard on the attack. They'll get the first offensive foray. And there's a save right off the bat. I think that was an intended pass that was just picked off by the goaltender, Gabby Gershon.
Yeah, so what you're going to see right here is there's two decisions you can make as a coach. You can either go and that's a nice clear from Gabby. She's making me eat my words there. And obviously, when she's wide open like that, that's going to be one. If she finds the attackers coming back or her defense coming back, she'll be in good shape. That's a check a little bit over the head. You'll see that there's a lot more calls in the girls' game than with the boys around safety because of no helmets. But back to Gabby, Conard chooses not to cover the goalie, where a lot of times you'll see Coach Meg Chaplin or myself, we cover the goalie to put some pressure on that person. It's just a style choice.
So here's Hall trying to get the game opening goal as they set up to Lakangas with the pass to Audrey Fromson, one of the seniors out there for Hall, getting a senior start today. Here's Victoria Condon. as they play catch along the perimeter. Aaron pass, loose ball on the far side, and it'll be Conard to control. Just underway, and my first question, Steve, we saw the division of quarters of the boys game. Here, just 2 halves. Any rationale to why they do that, or just a rule that's stood forever?
Well, while U.S. Lacrosse is the governing body for both the boys and girls, there really are 2 different games in many ways, and that's just one of the many differences. You'll find even in high school prep basketball, for example, they'll play halves, where in high school in the CIAC we play quarters, and it's just really sometimes a coaches and league preference. And there you see Gabby's capacity to make saves is tremendous, and I'm actually surprised Coach Rosasimo. I'm sure this is just her style all the time, and why change it now for this game? But
that was Kate Schaefer, by the way, that was thwarted by Gabby Gershon with the save.
Apparently what they've called right there was a block, and on the Hall trying to help get the Hall girl free, and the referee caught that, almost like a moving pick, if you will, in basketball.
Sure.
Yeah. So what happens in boys or girls lacrosse, if it's determined a shot attempt, it's who's ever closest to the ball when it goes out. If it was a pass, it doesn't matter who's closer. The other team's going to get the ball.
I see.
It's Feigenbaum. Gershon is on fire so far in net. She is absolutely locked in. I think that might be 4 saves already.
She is, absolutely. And she kept Maya from getting her 48th goal of the season. There's a story unto itself. They've only played 13 games so far, Steve. She's averaging almost 4 goals a contest.
Yeah, so and Maya is again, a kid who's a multi-sport athlete, grew up with soccer as her primary, then moved to some basketball, still doing soccer, and then found lacrosse, and has had a tremendous high school career in this sport. You see, again, Hall's doing a good job of getting stops, but in 2 possessions in a row, they haven't even been able to get it over midfield.
Another stop by Gershon. We have a whistle on the play as well.
Yeah, that's called shooting space. I'm going to have to disagree with the call based on it, but I obviously have a better angle from where I am right now. Essentially what happens is the referee needs to protect the player, that if they're in the line of path of a shot, they're going to blow the whistle. Even if the shot goes in, that would have gone to a free position. It's intended to protect the defense.
Jillian Haverty took that last shot. That one went off the goalpost and caromed fortuitously right to the netminder Gershon, and she's able to control. It's interesting, Steve, all the shots from Conard so far, they're trying to beat the goaltender high.
Yeah, and again, there's nerves. They're sort of getting what they want, and they might not have thought that Gabby was quite the goaltender that she is. I think actually Gabby may have gotten a tip on that, and then it went to post. So she's, again, really locked in, but I think once the Conard girls figure out that bounce shots are the way to go, she should do well. So that's a nice job coming back from the ball there by Nordyke, and now they've got numbers as we say.
And here's Torrey leading the attack off the pass from Nordyke. Had an angle momentarily, and instead dishes it off to Juliette Larocque. Now this is Caroline Grant.
Caroline, who will play at Ithaca next year. Ithaca just played Wesleyan in the NCAA tournament and knocked out Coach Chaplin's daughter Rachel in an overtime game.
Oh my!
Yeah. So here comes, looks like Feigenbaum in transition, trying to. It's a nice job of transition D by the Hall girls. Feigenbaum resets, and now they'll go into settled offense.
Yeah, the D that time by Erica Rothenberg and Ann Tulakangas. Keeping Maya from having a shooting angle.
So Hall's doing what's called a modified backer zone, and so they're not playing person to person like some teams traditionally do. You'll see it looks like Tulakangas is not covering anybody. She's just shadowing the ball. And so people need to rotate Oh.
Off the crossbar that time by Jillian Haverty. I'm sorry, Steve.
No worries. Again, that's another shooting space call, and that one was definitely legit because Conard did a nice job of making that extra pass. And as Hall passes players off, if they don't rotate properly, they're going to get these free positions all night.
And the shot goes wide. So this time they tried to go low. Off the stick side of Gershon. Conard controls. We've gone almost 7 minutes of the opening half. Still waiting for the icebreaker, as it were. No score.
Yeah, and that's really good news for Hall. If they can keep this score in the single digits, that's their chance to win. They are not going to win a shootout against a prolific scoring team like this. So, got to give a lot of credit to the Hall defense backed by Gabby Gershon, who's really taken away some of the confidence of the Conard girls right now. She's making herself much bigger than she really is in that net. And now the Conard girls seem to be pressing a little bit. They're trying to thread the needle as opposed to moving the goalie and just picking a spot and finishing.
It's kind of like any other sport, Steve, where you have the underdog, and the longer that the underdog stays in the contest, as it were, the more dangerous they become.
Absolutely, and then all of a sudden, you start to tighten up. You start to point fingers at your teammates. When we played Darien, who was ranked, I think, number 4 in the nation in the state semifinals a few years back, we wanted them to think we were trying to score. But for the first 8 minutes of the game, we ran a pattern play. There's another turnover, as you can see. That's Coach Sasimo's.
Maggie Venora hit the goal post on a breakaway. Rebound, shot goes wide.
Wow. You have to, again, Gershon is just fearless in there. So, we were talking about not covering the goalie on the redefend, and it's paid off. Gabby has not been able to clear it to folks, and that's not always on her. It's really on whether or not the girls are getting themselves open. But to my point about the Darien game, we ran a disguised stall. So we wanted to make them think that we were trying to score. So it was 0-0 after about 11 minutes.
Wow.
Then I think it was my daughter went away from game plan, tried to score, and within 2 minutes it was 8-1.
Oh, my.
We played them even the rest of the way, but because we went away from game plan, and I'm teasing about my daughter because there was, we did well to be where we were.
Sure.
But, that's what happens. And so right now, Hall's game plan, try to stop, use this backer defense. The fact that it's 0-0, that if you told them they were tied with, almost 10 minutes into the game, they'd be pretty happy at that point.
They'd sign for that, signed, sealed, and delivered, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Clock running, 15:45 to go.
It's another shooting space call, so a free position.
And they score. Jillian Haverty finally breaks the ice, and Conard has a 1-0 advantage, 9:23 into the opening half.
And upon the first goal of the game, the boys lacrosse team who played before us decided to take their shirts off and have a cheer. So it is nice to see when the boys support the girls' teams and vice versa.
Oh, absolutely. And they've stayed here en masse, as it were. So for Jillian Haverty, 20th goal of the year. And Meg Sassimo wanted to talk about her proficiency in the classroom as well, in excess of a 4.0 GPA.
Yeah, the Havertys, cousins and sisters and the great family have come through our program at 241 Sports over the years. And Jillian is she's always just had like this cool energy about her, and really fun athlete, and it's been really nice to see her have such a good career and still enjoying the sport the way she does. So this is the draw in girls lacrosse. Boys call it a face-off. That's a number 9. You can see went in to do the draw because she's so good at it. This is her first game back. That is Lauren Mahler, who not only had a really bad concussion to start the year in field hockey, and she's a great field hockey player, but then she had a stress fracture in her shins. She wears the helmet because of the concussion, and this is her first game back. It looks like they might be using her just as a draw specialist and then getting her out.
And she's another freshman, Steve, another in the long line of underclass girls doing the job for the Hall Warriors. Another big save by Gabby Gershon.
Yeah, so that's a nice check from me. Oh,
Whistle on the play.
well, that was called a held check. The top official didn't have that call. In checking in girls lacrosse, you have to snap at the stick and then pop it right back up. If you hold down after you check, it's called a held check, and that's what the referee called right there. Oh, that probably could have been a false start, but because the referees were still given instruction, they didn't call that.
Off the post. No, it went in. It deflected off the post and goes in. So the Conard Chieftains take a 2-0 lead.
You'll notice that both goals actually were the equivalent of a changeup in baseball. So as opposed to winding up and giving the rocket, what they did is in both cases, they just slowly picked their spot. And because Gabby was thinking it was going to come with pace, she didn't time it the way she was on those faster shots.
Interesting analysis there. So 2-0 the score. So after being shut out for the first 9:23 of the contest, Conard 2 goals in 78 seconds to open up the lead.
Yeah, and this is a game of spurts. So Hall has to just refocus, try to get back to where their game plan was, see if they can't try to snag a goal and keep the score as low as possible.
Gwen Geisler on the control for the Chieftains. Coach C was talking about her, saying she is the one player that plays every single second of every game, can't get her off the field.
That was a nice turnover forced by Ann Tuakangas there. And we've got some transition going on now by Tori Congan.
Here's Hall on the attack. This is Tuakangas with the pass to Chloe Nordyke. And now they back it out and set it up on the perimeter.
Yeah, at 2-0 with 12 minutes in, Hall should be in no hurry to try to climb back in the game. They're certainly in this game. What happens is if you try to score too many too quickly and you fail at it, you give Conard an opportunity to extend their lead, which, again, I think that if the score is under 5, with under 5 goals for Conard going into halftime, that's a good result for Hall.
Almost a moral victory for them at that point.
Well, it not only a moral victory, but it gives them a chance at real victory going into the second half. If it's over 10 at halftime, they're probably not going to be able to beat them in a shootout, so they'd, by a strategy standpoint, should be really happy to just possess here for a couple of minutes unless they have a real wide open goal.
And like you said in the first game with the boys, too, give their defense a chance to rest as well.
Exactly. So right there, it's a little bit of a force, and there's no need. Conard's also playing a backer zone, and Meg Sersasimo has played this particular defense for a long time. She runs it a little bit different than Hall does, in that most people they pass off differently in the back. So if you're a novice to this game, the best equivalent I can give you is a matchup zone like John Chaney would run from Temple in basketball, where you're really passing people off and you're always looking to help on the ball.
Okay. 2-0 the score. 12:15 to go, opening half.
Tuakangas is a true lefty, and she's very dominant that way. I'm assuming Conard scouted her well and know to keep her from being able to go left. That's certainly one of the things that a good scout would do for preparing for a game like this, because Tuakangas can be very dangerous if you allow her to go hard left.
Yeah, that's what Meg Chaplin said. She said, that's one way, and she's able to exploit her southpaw status, is that a lot of players on other teams don't react to the lefties as well.
Yeah, you're just not used to it, but it's one of the reasons why it's so important. So here you can see, Hall's making the decision right now to let that girl chase up top. We're in no hurry. They're trying to suck out the Conard zone because they know how hard it is to get it in there. So they're making a decision right now. Look, 2-0. We're plenty happy with that score. We know we can always score 2. It's a pretty aggressive check right there. And that's what can happen, too. This might be a card, actually. Yeah.
The left-handed status, though, that's how 8-year-old Pete Lamoureux walked 23 times in his first year in Little League. They didn't know what to do with me, Steve.
Is that right? So this looks like the referee's talking to number 5, Maggie Murray. And I didn't see what happened. I certainly, the referee talked to her, so probably explaining why the card came. And so now this is a non-releasable penalty. So Hall probably says, okay, we were looking to stall, but now we're man up. If we could get the 2 goals back while we're man up, let's do it. In other words, it's not releasable, meaning if we score, it's not like she automatically gets in. You could score 5 goals in 2 minutes, and she could still be in the penalty area. That's a shooting space right there.
The equivalent of a major penalty in hockey is they can score as many as they want. She stays in there.
Yes. And so what happened immediately, because Conard was down, they had to change what they were doing defensively and put them into shooting space.
Tori Condon with the shot and the save by Maggie Yeza. Big stop by the Conard netminder, who has a 47% save percentage on her season.
Yeah, I think Tori'd like to have that one back. You know, it's the first good chance that Hall had, and she really didn't do anything to move the goalie. She just came in. It was easy for the goalie to read it, and as opposed to faking high and then going low, it was a pretty easy save at that point. Not taking anything away from the goalie, but I think Tori, as a good goal scorer, would like that one back. But Conard just, as opposed to running out that penalty, just gave the ball back.
So here come the Warriors.
Look at Feigenbaum's speed coming down from behind. I think she's playing midfield, so she's prodding up. She's stopping and has to stop at the restraining line to avoid offsides.
Pass from Pomerleau down low, looking for Avery Polk.
And again, that's frustration by the coaches. I can see their body language that we gained possession with the penalty, and as opposed to just taking our time, settling it, ball was thrown out of bounds, and it's back to Conard, who probably at this point would be happy enough just to kill the penalty before they do anything else.
And how long is that penalty lasting?
2 minutes.
2 minutes, okay.
Yeah, it's kept down on the field with the scorekeeper. The person has to stay right in front of the clock, and she'll be told when you can go back to full strength.
Maya with the pass to Gwen Geisler. This is Kate Schaefer, sophomore, 2-year starter. Started as a freshman for Meg Sursasimo.
Yeah, I know the Schaefer family well, and Kate plays club ball with my daughter Siobhan, who's out with a concussion today. And she's just a wonderful kid and a great goal scorer. I'm glad to see she's having such a terrific season.
Here's Maya working her way into good shooting position. And before the shot was taken, a whistle on the play. Clock stopped at 8:58 to play opening half. Chieftains leading this low-scoring affair by the count of 2-0.
It appears that that's a shooting space call. Maya's so dangerous because you can't tell if she's right-handed or left-handed when she plays lacrosse, and it's one of the reasons why she's done such a good job. And obviously, that free position gives her a chance to score yet another goal for Conard.
Her second of the game, 49th of the season. And the Chieftains lead by the count of 3-0.
Yeah, and so again, I think as if Hall were to review film, one of the things as you mature, as you recognize time, score, and situation, and they certainly would like to get the opportunity back to take advantage of that penalty that was awarded them with 2-0 and 10 minutes to go. So they're back to full strength at this point. So so again, we've got the draw specialist in Lauren Mahler, who's been out with an injury. If she doesn't win the draw, or even if she does, she'll try to get out of the game as quickly as possible because of her her stress fracture injury.
She goes up against Gwen Geisler, and we talked about Meg Sursasimo called her Energizer Bunny because she's always moving and doing something. She runs indoor track and cross country, and that's how she stays in such great shape.
Sure. If Gwen weren't playing lacrosse, she'd be an all New England track star, probably in the 1600 or the 3200. She's a machine, and another great kid and great family, and thrilled for her that she's going to be playing lacrosse on the next level.
Here's Maya trying to do her thing from right out in front, and a whistle on the play.
So as you can see, the top official is explaining to the bottom official what it is she saw, and it appears that Hall was offsides, meaning that they had 8 players over the restraining line there at the 30-yard line as opposed to 4. Okay. And as a result, the player has to go back, and then Maya gets it at the top, and they put one player behind her. So it's a pretty strong position for Maya to be able to go in and try to get that goal. But they did a nice job of shutting her down and forcing a tough shot.
And it deflected high over the net, but I can definitely see your point about her either left-handed or right-handed. I mean, there's like a lacrosse ambidexterity to her game.
Absolutely, and it's one of the things that makes her so strong. I mean, I knew her as a basketball and a soccer player, and she was definitely right-hand, right-foot dominant. It's a great save by Gershon and a nice pickup by Parmelo, I believe that is. I think part of what happened, the reason Hall got offsides there is because you have Mahler as a draw specialist who by instinct just followed the play and found herself on the defensive side. But the game plan, I'm sure, was to get her to come off the field, and somebody else went, not realizing she had gone back on defense.
Conard on the attack. Nice pass, and the shot goes wide. Wonderful feed that time by Jillian Haverty, but her Conard teammate, unfortunately, could not convert.
Yeah,
back to that last save by Gabby Gershon. That's 6 unofficially in the opening half. She's definitely keeping her team in the game, Steve.
Yeah, I mean, that's 6 on versus 3 goals. So that's obviously a tremendous percentage, and it's one of the things that's allowed Hall to keep this score within reach.
Maya's shot again. Gabby Gershon's got the answer.
Yes, indeed. Not only that, she picked up her teammate's stick and handed her to her. So she's helping out in more ways than one.
She does it all for the Hall Warriors, no doubt about it.
So see, this was a challenge for the boys for Hall. They gained possession, but then immediately what's happening is they're having unforced turnovers. And so it's frustrating as a coach and certainly for the players as well. But it's one of the reasons Conard has had a more successful season. So Hall is going to the stall again. Again, more than happy to keep the score under 5 goals. The last time they did this, they drew a penalty, a frustration penalty. And so the Conard coaches have to make a decision. Do we want to take the bait, go out, force the action, or are we happy enough with 3? I hear Coach Sesamo barking orders and a little more aggression from Conard. So I think that she's changing things up because she's not happy with the stall tactics that are happening. So a little gamesmanship, a little chess match going on between the 2 coaches. It'll be interesting to see the outcome.
Tulakangas and Congdon on the perimeter. Pass goes down low to Fromson. Back of the net, Caroline Grants was 19 goals on the season after a 20-goal performance in 2016.
Yeah, and probably would be much higher, except that she missed 3 to 4 key matches with the concussion earlier in the season as well, and right in the heart of the season. It actually was, in some ways, was a blessing for the team, and obviously not for Caroline, but it allowed some other players to step up and show their skills, because Caroline was without Cammie Cho, was the definite senior leader out there, and like a good captain, she celebrated in the 3 or 4 game win streak that happened in her absence. So we actually followed a similar tact to what I can tell you right now. This is likely came from Coach Tringali, obviously with the approval of Coach Meg Chaplin. My second year with the 2 of them on my staff, we were going up against a prolific scoring Simsbury team, and we held the ball like this for 16 minutes to start the half.
Wow.
And Simsbury parents were not happy with us. And, you know, but it was the right approach, and we were not expected to win that game, and we wound up winning something like 6-5. And they got a lot of penalties. They were very frustrated, and it wound up being the right approach. And I think for Hall, they knew they were not going to win a game 20-18, but they got a chance to win 8-6. So this is giving them that opportunity.
Kind of like Dean Smith's 4 corners.
Very similar. It's one of the reasons why I would not be surprised that there'll be a shot clock in women's lacrosse at the high school level. It's being tested around the country at the college level. I imagine it will likely happen within a couple years. So Coach Sasamo right now, I can see her talking with her staff, trying to make a decision about whether or not they want to extend. But I can tell you right now, Hall is going to wait this one out if Coach Sasamo doesn't make the decision to go pressure the ball.
with 2:45 to go here in the opening half and the clock running. Conard 3, Hall no score. And they got all 3 goals within about a 6-minute span midway through this opening half.
Yeah. And what happens in a situation like this is once the coaches say go ahead and play, the Hall girls got to be careful to not just try to run it down their necks. Now you just go back into your normal set. You've run off 3 or 4 minutes. Or you say, all right, yeah, we're just teasing you. Let's come back out and do it.
Sure.
And they might do the stall again. Obviously, Coach Sasimo will talk about it with her staff and her captains at halftime. How do they want to do it? But you can see already that teams are trying to extend. I think, is that Maggie Murray on the top of that particular backer zone right there, number 7. The danger right now, because of how frustrating this can be, is that Maggie's playing on a card. And if she were to get a second card, she'd be out of the rest of the contest. So she has to be really careful as that aggressor up top to not have anything happen even by accident. Like if she has a check that inadvertently hits somebody's head, she'll be out of the game. And then the stall would have worked effectively because they would have gotten rid of one of their better defenders.
It's like the NBA player trying to play with 5 fouls.
Exactly.
So or one technical as well.
Yep. So here's what happened: is they tried to get a forced shot in there. They got the turnover, and even if Conard only gets 1 more goal, I would say the stall had its intended impact. But Hall would do very well if they can go in at 3-0.
Aaron pass, but controlled by the Chieftains. Lauren Massaro in possession. A minute to go. Good move out in front. And a whistle.
Yeah, so in girls lacrosse, what can happen is if the referee raises the flag, it's continuation. You play on unless it's so dangerous that they need to stop it. So if Maya had taken a shot there and didn't score, though, then the flag would have been picked up. And so sometimes your coaches or teammates will yell flag, and you'll just drop the ball because you'll get a free position right there. That's 3 fouls already on this particular possession, 1 that he allowed to play on, but here gives the free possession on the foul by Tua Kangas.
And Faith Haverty getting set to shoot for the Chieftains. And another save by Gershak. Amazing goaltending performance in this opening half.
Really is, and again on her senior night, given where she came, as somebody in the program to be having such a incredible night against a team that is scoring against the best goalies in the state, it's tremendous. Yet another foul. The referees are keeping it clean. They're definitely keeping control of this game. They're doing a nice job in that. So another free position here for number 8.
And here's Jillian Haverty.
Yeah, Jillian decides to back it out, get it to her teammate Maya, who does love to score and has a nose for the goal. On that left hand, she's trying to get it.
Good defense that time. Maggie Grant, the sophomore for Hall, staying with her stride for stride.
Yeah, it's Caroline's little sister who enjoys playing defense. Probably learned it playing against her older sister, who's going to play at Ithaca next year. Feigenbaum, as you can see, is setting up with the right hand, but I wouldn't be surprised if at some point, well, actually, from this angle, she'll probably keep it on the right.
And
she
the
tries
shot
a high
goes
shot.
high and wide.
So 11.6 seconds. Again, will be a really successful half for Hall if they can keep it at 3 right now.
10 seconds and the clock running. Kate Schaefer for Conard. 1 second to go. And the clock's going to expire. And that's the end of the first half. With the score, Conard 3 and Hall no score. And Steve, a pretty good half for both teams.
Yeah, I mean, certainly I think it's hard to say what a great half for Hall High School when they didn't score a goal, but it was a great half for Hall High School. I just saw a fist bump from Coach Tringali, who was really happy with the defensive effort. Again, I think most folks coming would have expected Conard to have somewhere between 8 and 12 goals at this point, and it was clearly part of the Hall game plan And so anytime game plan works, you go into halftime building confidence and saying, all right, let's keep it going. But we can't win scoring 0 goals. They have to have a strategy in order to try to give themselves a chance to win this.
At what point do you think they try to step it up offensively in the second half?
Yeah, I think you got to take your chances in transition. So if you have numbers, in other words, you come down 5-on-3, 4-on-2,
Sure.
you go ahead and take that opportunity when it's given to you. But if you don't have numbers, then you pull it back out. And I would say if you can keep it within 3 or 4 goals until under 9 minutes, then you have to start trying to win the game.
Sure.
And at that point, you've given yourself a shot against one of the better teams in the state. But Coach Sasamo is a good coach. She's gonna things will be different in the second half. I'd be very surprised if they're not.
It's a Conard team that has scored 10 or more goals in all 13 of their contests, held to 3, but they still have the lead here at halftime at Chalmers Stadium. Again, the score at halftime. It's Conard 3 and Hall nothing. Steve Boyle and I come back with second half action, but first we'll step aside and remind you that you're watching West Hartford High School Sports here on WHC-TV Channel 5 and online at WHCTV.org. Back after this.
He'd rather watch paint dry than go work out.
And welcome back, everybody, as we get set for second half action. We're at Chalmers Stadium on the campus of William H. Hall High School. Pete Lamoureux along with Steve Boyle and our fine Channel 5 crew. 3-0 the score. Conard in front of Hall. And again, what do you look for here in the second half, Steve?
Well, I imagine it will be more of the same from Hall's strategy, and to see if Conard's made any definitive adjustments to the stall style. Obviously, like we talked about in the boys' game, possession matters, and I would say that probably, despite the score 3-0, we weren't keeping track, but I would say it was almost 50-50 in terms of possession. But all of Conard's possession was peppering a great goal effort by Gabby Gershon, and all of Hall's effort was really to try to run clock and not turn the ball over, because I think they may have only had 2 or 3 shots on net.
Exactly. That save effort by Gabby again. 7 out of 10 unofficially, and that actually eclipses her season mark of 59%. So she's had a phenomenal game in net so far for the Hall Warriors. And Hall coming off the 9-7 victory on Monday over Avon that raised their mark to 8-6 on the campaign. Conard an 18-6 win over Southington. They start play today at 11-2.
That's a good sign for Hall in winning that first draw. They decided not to go with Lauren Mahler, who had done the draws in the first half. And looks like that was Tori Congdon who did the draw. Actually, no, Lauren is in the game, but she's just playing a straight attack position now. But Hall got it and immediately did not go to the stall tactic. So maybe Hall has decided, let's play even after keeping the score where it is at that point. We'll see on their next possession.
Here's Conard on the rush. Maya backs it out as she hands it off to Jillian Haverty.
They've really done a nice job on shutting down. And despite the fact that Maya Feigenbaum has both 2 of the 3 goals, they've done a really good job at stopping her and forcing her away from her comfort zone. That was close to being a charge right there. It was pretty good position, but because the defender, looks like Tuakangas, extended her arms, the referee awarded a checking foul, a cross-check, and has a free position. Again, great job by Hall right there to close down that middle gap.
Yeah, no shooting lane whatsoever at that point.
Yeah, and what's interesting certainly is that, my daughter with the concussion, this is really the first game they've played without her, and she plays a lot of defense for them. So having seen Hall play a fair bit, I'm really impressed with how this group has played cohesively with their decisions right there.
Maya's shot goes wide. As defensive-minded as your daughter is, still chipped in with 13 goals on the offense. How about that?
Yeah, I think, she having followed her sister who had just had a nose for it, she doesn't really love to play attack and doesn't have the confidence up there, but she is pretty competitive and aggressive. So speaking of competitive and aggressive, there's that left hand from Feigenbaum that we were talking about. She missed that last one with the right hand and came back with a good answer with the left.
So she gets the hat trick. It's her 3rd and her 50th on the season. Milestone goal for Maya Feigenbaum.
Yeah, good for her. That's that's obviously a hefty number, 50 goals in a season. And you can tell that when they want a goal, she's sort of like, give me the ball and I'll create, which you want to have a player like that. And then, knowing Coach Crisosimo, she'd love for her to have 50 assists as well.
Sure. Tulikangas out of the game for the Warriors as we get set for the draw. That goal came exactly 2 minutes into play here in the second half, extending the Chieftains' lead to 4 at 4-0.
Well, it was Feigenbaum's multi-sport playing there. She blocked that girl out like you do on a rebound really well. Knew she'd get the ball when she did it, and just earned herself a shooting space call. So she's taken over in a lot of ways right now.
She really accelerated, Steve, after she controlled the ball there.
Yeah, it was a crafty, clever play, and I imagine she'll come in with her left and go to her left. She's been more confident with her left today than her right. I thought she was going to cross it back over to her right there, but she wanted to get the quick shot off. Another good save by Gabby Gershon.
And a good outlet pass to Tori Congdon, the freshman.
So
leading the attack.
So little cross check there. Looks like Tori's going to get a free position and maybe give Hall a chance at their first goal of the game to get it back to the number. Nope, he called it outside of the scoring area, so it'll be an indirect there.
Pass goes to Grant. Back to Tori for a second, Steve. She had her signature game earlier this year against Southington, had a 4-goal game.
Yeah, I think that was sort of a breaking out party for her, is that she gained a lot of confidence there. Said, all right, I'm a freshman, but doesn't mean I can't take shots and score a lot of goals. So from there, it really is, I've seen a different kid. I think, we got to give Conard credit on their defense. We haven't talked a lot about that today. Despite Hall's stall tactics, they've done a great job of limiting shots to protect their goalkeeper, who hasn't had to do that much work to keep them in the game. This backer zone that they run very well. Is very difficult to run offense against. And so hard to know if Hall's disguising a stall here or if they are just being very deliberate. It'll be interesting to see if they can stay patient and really wait for that great opportunity. See, this is speaks to being a young team. Is you're running offense, you're in no hurry, and you give the ball away sort of inexplicably there for no reason.
Here's Faith Haverty for Conard, trying to take it. The root and their bounce shot goes wide of the cage.
Well, you know what? They're giving that ball to as Coach Tringali chasing after the loose ball, it appears that they're going to give the ball to Hall based on what the referee said, but I don't really understand why. It was a shot, and even though the Conard girl tipped it, it's still supposed to go to Conard in that case, unless they thought she had a chance to possess it. So at any rate, doesn't matter because Hall gave it right back.
And the shot goes off the crossbar. Good setup that time from Geisler to Feigenbaum. And she tried to beat Gershon stick side high and just went off the bar.
Yeah, you saw Feigenbaum's frustration. Despite having a hat trick already, she feels like she could have 6 or 7 in this game. And she sort of put her head down like she can't catch a break. And that was a pretty good shot, and it just, caught the pipe.
That's the mentality, I guess, of a 50-goal scorer, right?
Exactly. It's like, you're a 3-point shooter and you're 0 for 11, and the next time you're open, you're going to take that shot regardless if you have a scorer's mentality. You saw there on that shot, the ball went out on the sideline because of the way that it ricocheted, and still, it doesn't matter if it goes off the end line or the sideline, it's closest to the ball when it goes out of bounds. When I was first introduced to this sport, when I watched my wife play in a women's league, there were natural boundaries. So if you played and there was a parking lot nearby, it was first to the car that the ball went under, and I used to love it. It was literally, you'd play, depending on the field you played at, it would just be safety, and you'd see people running off. Again, I think Hall's losing their focus a little bit. They got to stay with game plan, get possession, don't turn the ball over in the midfield, given Conard way too many unnecessary chances. They could have run 4 or 5 more minutes off this clock at this point if they can limit those errors. Gershon is having a monster game, comes up with the loose ball right there, really importantly.
And as great as she's been in net, the biggest thing that she, I'm sure, would like to talk about, she was voted an academic All-American by U.S. Lacrosse. How about that?
Yeah, that's terrific. And, again, a sign for a kid that did not come to this sport having played a ton. To leave as an academic All-American is fantastic. Student athlete, and that's what you want.
Student first, right?
Exactly. So again, there's another case where Hall did a great job of earning possession, but as opposed to maintaining it and getting it over the restraining line and going into their settled offense, they've given another shot.
And the shot goes high and wide.
I am surprised that Conard continues to try to shoot high on Gabby, given the game that she's been having. I'm going to look for some of their top scorers to adjust that a little bit as their attempts come moving forward.
In the boys' game, we saw such success by the Conard Chieftains with the bounce shot.
Exactly. Oh, there's an unforced error. I suppose it was forced, but certainly not one you'd expect from a veteran team like Conard to turn the ball over there. So we've got numbers like we talked about. I don't know if you noticed there, but one of the things that kids forget is that the sun is setting, and that pass went right into the eyes of Avery Polk. She asked for it. The runner doesn't know that she can't see that well.
Right.
So you really want to run your offense going this way because it can get really hard with this setting sun to catch, especially it's a yellow ball. It can be hard to pick up if it gets caught in the sunlight.
That's a great observation.
Well, you could see even the Conard goalie as she turns her head to this side. She's looking into that setting sun right now. So home field advantage. We used to try to get Maddie Hooper on the other side in the second half when we could to take that sun out of play, especially on these early evening games.
Every tactic matters, right?
You know what?
Analysis,
you
got
to pay attention to the little stuff, and the big stuff tends to turn out okay. Looks like Murray tripped there somehow, and as they go to resolve that, there's an issue. And they called a foul on Murray. I'm not sure I agree with that call. Looked like pretty good, clean position defense, but they must be saying she extended her arms, which you're not allowed to do.
Maggie Murray, a 3-sport athlete, basketball and soccer as well as lacrosse.
Yeah, I grew up with Maggie on my middle daughter Michaela's soccer and basketball team, so got to know her great parents over the years, and love to see her. She's dealt with a lot of injuries, so I'm glad to see her out here playing on her senior day of her final sport. Right there was a shooting space call. Even if it had been a goal, Hall's first of the game, they would have taken that back. It's one of those frustrating rules that I'm surprised hasn't changed from U.S. Lacrosse, but it's intended to protect players.
Tula Kangas with a shot, knocked down by Maggie Yeza in goal.
That was a case where being a lefty, Avery Polk with a nice knockdown, where being a lefty was given out being on the left side. She didn't have the greatest angle, and had she been a right-hander, she would have tried to get to the center and picked either side. It would made it a little bit easier lefty on the left side.
15 minutes, 10 seconds to go in the contest. Conard leading by the count of 4-0. They led 3-0 at halftime. They've added 1 goal to their total here since the intermission.
So that's number 19, Avery Polk, who has an identical twin sister, Grace Polk, on the team. Avery tends to play more attack, and Grace gets her minutes more on the defensive side, but plays both. Again, wonderful kids who just really enjoy playing multiple sports. They were both on the varsity and JV basketball team swinging this year, and have found their niche playing lacrosse as well as field hockey.
Grace Polk, one of those that we talked about at the outset with her great defensive abilities, causing 6 ground balls in the first 9 games.
She got handcuffed there. Again, just simple offense, trying to reverse, run some clock. It's a throwaway, and opportunity to win goes away when you continue to give possession away the way Hall has at times. They're giving themselves a chance to be in the game, but then giving the ball away.
So here comes Conard on the counter. Nice pass in front. Geisler, though, didn't have an angle, so she backs it back out. Low shot, and they score. Faith Haverty picking the lower corner on Gabby Gershon and has given Conard a 5-0 lead.
Yeah, transition after the turnover. Hall has done such a tremendous job, as Meg Chaplin calls a first time out of the game. You get 2 total for the game, unlike the boys who get 2 per half. You're going to use them strategically, and this is a good point. Perfect time to call that first time out because Conard's got a little momentum. They've got that 5-goal lead now. They can slow it down. So game plan changes a little bit with the 5-goal as opposed to a 3-goal lead.
The War Chief Sports Council would like to thank our many fine sponsors, including those at the all-state level. And they include Keating Insurance, Maca Plumbing and Heating, Reed and Reach PC, Counselors at Law, ESPN, College Prep Express, and the McConnell Family Law Group. Thanks to one and all for your sponsorship of the War Chief Sports Council. And for more information, go to their website at war-chief.net. And a reminder, join us for our final spring broadcast next Monday, May the 22nd. It's baseball time, and we'll be broadcasting the Mayor's Cup game over at the University of Hartford's Fiandella Field. Join Jeff Kaplowitz and me for all of the action. First pitch at 4:30 next Monday afternoon as Conard tries to win for a 3rd consecutive time in that annual event at the University of Hartford. I think we talked about it during the girls' game, Steve. Quite a treat for those kids to be able to go over and play over there. Not only the boys' game, which we're broadcasting, but the softball players as well. We had the softball game earlier this year between Hall and Conard, but all the kids certainly enjoy themselves.
Yeah, in today's age of media and media access, never mind just social media, the fact that these kids can play at the top high school level and be able to have the games be televised and have announcers, it's got to be a lot of fun for them. It'll be interesting just based on pitching rotations whether or not Kyle Jeter can get the mound against Conard, who's obviously the ace for Hall, who started the season with a perfect game, which I was getting texts from Coach Von Meyerhauser and Coach Billing after the game that in all their lives they'd never seen one live. And whether at the high school level, college level, or certainly professional, a perfect game is a perfect game. And it was a really neat way to start the season. And Kyle has since, I understand, gotten a commitment to be able to pitch at Dartmouth upon graduation in a couple of years.
Interesting story about that. One of the reasons he opted for Dartmouth, and he had a few other opportunities within the Ivy League, Jeff Billing told me it's because the pitching coach up there is a small, feisty left-hander just like Kyle, and he said it'll be a perfect match to have those two working together for 4 years.
Yeah, and what's great is when coaches always say Andy's a great kid, and having a daughter at the school and knowing lots of folks who know the good kids, he that's a term that's used for him by everybody who knows him. So congratulations, Kyle. If you do pitch, good luck. And good luck to both Hall and Conard in that game. It's always a great event.
And as I knock on my forehead, knock on wood here, it is going to be Kyle Jeter against Mike Matthews on the mound. Should be one stellar pitching duel next Monday afternoon.
Well, it'll be fun that you'll be with Coach Kaplowitz, who's, he's one of those guys you'd think was 110 years old when he tells you the stories of different things he's done over his lifespan. Like, how could you have done that in your young life? But he'll talk about being a taxi driver in L.A. and being a chiropractor and coaching in the 60s and 70s and baseball being, his sport growing up. But then he obviously was exposed to being a multi-sport coach as well. But baseball is one of his true passions, so you'll have a good time with Coach Kaplowitz, I'm sure.
He and I reminisce about our days playing Stratomatic, the great table game of baseball.
Yeah, that's Coach Billing would enjoy that. He's got that MIT mind, and any opportunity to talk statistics and strategy. His Friday night fun is getting the guys together to play Risk, and so. You'll enjoy getting to know Jeff over the years as well, I'm sure.
Oh, absolutely.
Jeff Billing, that is.
Always enjoy talking to Jeff Billing, and Again, all of you coaches in West Hartford, you're all first class. I'll tell you.
Well, I appreciate it. I do miss having a team and the camaraderie that comes with coaching, the banter in the locker room with my fellow coaches. So, of all the other things I'm doing, that's what I miss most as a result. So right there, what you can see is that's checking in the girls' game. In the boys' game, you can, because there's pads, you can hit into the arms. Here, you have to check outside the shoulders, and by rule, it's why the girls can't cradle right in front of their face. You need to give an opportunity to check, and so sometimes you'll see that called against the offense. So, Hall, again, after this timeout, they didn't gain possession right on the draw, but did on a little bang-bang turnover. So they're sort of stuck now to say, all right, we've got to score, but we also don't want to play up-tempo.
Caught between a rock and a hard place for sure.
I have to think that that's exactly what I was talking about before. That pass was literally right into the sun. During that timeout, the teammates should be saying, let's run it on the other side, because that looked like a sun in the eyes drop, because it was an easy pass, easy catch, and she literally missed it by what looked like 8 or 9 inches. So sun coming into factor there, I believe. There's another goal by Feigenbaum. She's, again, because she was setting everybody up thinking she was going righty, she crossed over so nicely there, like you would a crossover dribble, as if you're going to then finish with a left-handed layup. She switched hands and went upper 90 with a great left-handed goal.
4th of the afternoon/evening, 51st on the campaign.
Yeah, 4 is probably her average, and as we talked about before, that it could easily enough be 8. She looks really dangerous when she goes down the field, because you can tell she's constantly moving, constantly changing direction, and because she's so lethal with both hands, makes it really difficult to defend her. Hall's done a great job for most of the evening containing her, but without her 4 goals, it's a 2-0 game. But with them, 6-0 is starting to put it a little bit out of reach, unless Hall can start to get themselves on the map.
With 12:15 to go here in the second half. Here's Maya again. And the goal's going to be waved off because before the shot, there was a whistle on the play.
Yeah, another shooting space call, which again, Maya's got to be careful. It was shooting space. It was clear. She's so good at what she does. She avoided the defender, but that defender was at risk. And there's a right-handed goal by Maya. So just to make sure everybody knew it was for real, she finished one with her right hand.
And that's her 5th of the day, and that extends the lead to 7-0 for the Conard Chieftains. So I have to ask you, Steve, with all the players that we've talked about, Hall in particular, you've talked about multiple concussions. How long until we see in the girls' game the helmets being worn?
Well, I hope we never see it, quite frankly. And this is me as a dad watching my daughter on the sideline, who, had she had a helmet on, maybe would have protected her. But if you look at the helmet that Lauren Mahler has on, the concussion my daughter suffered was a blow to more the cheek and the side of the head. And if you put helmets on girls, I can guarantee you it will become a more aggressive game. And so while you might protect the top of the head, concussions happen for different reasons. They happen when you fall. It's whiplash of the brain. And so what I'm afraid of is that these kids would be swinging a lot more out there and putting kids at risk for other injuries, maybe ACLs, maybe bone injuries, and they think they could hit kids on the head. You can get a concussion getting hit on the head, even if you have a helmet on. So I think it would be a real mistake. I think they just need to continue to enforce the rules they have and come up with new rules that can protect kids from over-aggressive play that put the head at risk. So I know there's constant talk about it, but real purists of the girls' game, as I like to think I am, do not think it would be good for the game.
Okay. Another turnover, and here comes Maya on the attack again.
So just like in soccer, change of field, often you're best doing it going backwards. So you saw Conard did that perfectly there, as opposed to just forcing it down the gut. They reversed it by playing backwards. You'll see that in ice hockey and other sports. And it's one of the most effective ways to beat the defense in transition. a bit of a force there. I think some of these seniors and some of the kids want to try to get their goals. I get that, but no need to force up 7-0 and wind up being a turnover going to Hall.
And that's exactly what happened. And again, good D back behind the net as well. Erica Rothenberg, whenever there's something good defensively happening for Hall, it seems like she's in the middle of it.
Yeah, again, Feigenbaum having an incredible game. Really good check right there. Hall coaches thought it should have been a foul. Tough call. But Maya is a feisty competitor. Turned her over right there. You can see Maya looks like she's going to come out of the game right now. Looking pretty tired, or at least rest on the defensive side.
I'm sure also, too, with the 7-0 advantage just 9.5 minutes to go, don't want to risk any injury.
Absolutely. They're going to need her down the stretch. She actually looks like she's hurting a little bit coming off the sideline there. So hope she's okay. Never want to see anybody getting hurt. And trainers are talking to her. Could just be a cramp in this heat. It was in the high 90s earlier today, probably higher than that out on the field. So we haven't talked about that much in this game, but it's certainly got to be playing a factor and starting to wear down both teams a little bit.
No question about it. And even with this surface, Steve, being better than the traditional AstroTurf that a lot of teams and a lot of places had for years, it's still a lot warmer than the regular air temperature.
Oh, absolutely. You can see the black pellets. Conard's actually getting theirs replaced this season because it's been around for over maybe 12, 15 years, I think. But the older they get, more the black pellets are exposed, and then that heats the whole surface as those black pellets get hit by the sun. And so it just radiates. So what I've always found about having coached multiple sports on this particular field is that the temperature is exaggerated. So when it's hot up here, it's hotter. And when it's cold up here, it's colder. And sometimes that has to do with wind. Like today's breeze is a warm breeze, and that doesn't seem to be helping all that much.
Right. 8:55 to go. 8-0 to score. Conard in front. Gwen Geisler. The one player that Meg Sosmo says will not come out of the game. Just perpetual motion and perpetual energy.
People certainly know about Gwen, as she can run all day. And, a good midfielder is probably going to run 5-6 miles in a game. Well, that's an off day for Gwen Geisler.
Wow.
And here you see that Hall was able to get that rebound. I think for Hall, right at this point, they've done a great job in game plan. It's a 50-minute game. It's a long game.
Right.
They held them to a really respectable goal total at halftime of 3. I think at this point, if they can get a couple goals, they'd feel pretty good about that. They certainly want to try to avoid the shutout at this point.
That's Olivia Pomerlow for the Hall Warriors. She's a junior. Meg Chaplin was proud of the fact that Olivia caused 9 turnovers in her first 11 games.
Yeah, I like Olivia's aggression. So she sometimes with the stick just tries to run out of danger and then give it up. But she, at this point, she should be taking a look around, seeing if you got a couple kids cross field that are unmarked. If she could get the ball over there, she can go back and catch her breath on the defensive side.
Talk about the Sosmo family certainly having their imprint on the lacrosse program at Conard. Talked about Matt, talked about Meg, and there's the patriarch of the family, Coach C, Rob, on the sideline, still coaching up 8-0 with 7 minutes to go.
Oh yeah, I think he's he obviously loves his son, but there's nothing better than when your son marries a woman that he loves as well, and he loves coaching with Meg. I think I can just imagine the banter that happens around the dinner table. Sunday night dinner over some pasta and meatballs, and that it must be a lot of fun for him. I know that my wife's father was a longtime coach, and he had a chance to coach with my wife a couple years. Actually had Robert Kennedy's granddaughter on their team, Megan Kennedy Townsend, and just sharing stories and watch the two of them talk about their coaching days together reminds me an awful lot of my late father-in-law to see Rob and Megan out there together. So I love to see it.
And, of course, one of the first families of sports in West Hartford, the Sersosimo family, the Robinson families, for sure.
Yeah, I think folks are probably familiar now with the great documentary that came out a few years back. Coach Von Meyerhauser's featured in it an awful lot, and Coach Blanchfield and some of the coaching legends around town, but obviously it's all in the family is kind of the theme about it. So, again, nice to see Coach Rob Sr. out there still at it.
Rob Sersosimo, Steve Blanchfield in particular, childhood buddies going back many, many years.
Yeah, it's I love Coach Blanchfield. I get to see him almost daily in the center or at the coffee shop, and he'll talk to anybody and everybody. And during this time of year, he's got his Conard gear on, and in the fall, he's got his Hall gear on, and somehow he sort of segues at some point during the season, during the winter.
And we would have done the tennis match, except that they scheduled it on the same day as today. So we're getting them to change the schedule next year so we can do some tennis coverage as well.
Fantastic. And Coach Jim Solomon is an old friend as well and was a real mentor to me when I moved to West Hartford, and forever indebted to guys like Coach Solomon who constantly reminded the younger guys of how important the work we do is as coaches. No better role model than Coach Sol.
And Coach Sol and Coach Blanchfield together, 900 tennis wins. Amazing.
It's really unbelievable when you think about it. I mean, I didn't realize the number was that high. It gives me goosebumps just knowing what great men both of them are.
And the longevity and the consistency, just terrific.
Absolutely. We talk about, there's a book by Angela Duckworth called Grit, and grit is something that is hard to teach, but it certainly is all about stick-with-itness, and those two guys have stuck with it for a long time, and as a result have impacted a lot of lives and had a lot of success.
No doubt about it. Well said. 5.5 to play. Maya's back on the field, so good news for Conard.
Yeah, good news for Conard, bad news for Hall. Certainly, senior day, she probably said, Coach, I want to get back out there. This is one of those games where we feel, those seniors might have a little more say than they normally do in how things get done.
I was going to ask you about that. You had made another interesting comment right before the half as Conard scores again to make it 10-0, and they will now have scored 10 or more in every game so far this season. You talked about how the coaches were going to talk and with the players. How much input would players have besides a game like this, generally speaking, when you go to halftime and talk strategy or at any point during the course of the game?
It's really style, and so as I matured as a coach over the years, I tried to give more power to my players.
Okay.
Especially, I probably spent 80-90% of my life between New York, Seattle, and here coaching girls, more girls than boys. And I came to realize that girls want to participate in the decisions a little bit more maybe than boys do, and that there are some kids for whom they need to have that role, and you build trust with your players to a point where you can say, yeah, you know what, you're seeing something out there that I'm not, and so you get input. But that's the power of having good captains as well.
Sure.
Is that sometimes that can get, for a meeker or quieter player, they can use their captains to relay something that we can then. So, I coach with Coach Ferguson. He always ends his half times, anything from any of you guys, anything we're not seeing. And so, I learned from him that player input is really important because now they feel part of the leadership, part of the decision making, and if they give a prescription and you agree, okay, let's do it, and they don't follow through on it, now they've got to own it when we talk about it after the game. So
Sure.
You want to empower your athletes to feel like what you can overrule. You're the coach, and just say, look, I hear you, and I appreciate what you're saying, but I think we still should move forward with this as a strategy. And if you've developed good relationships with your players, that back and forth is going to work. But if you never listen to them, they're probably never going to listen to you.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. It is reciprocal. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, if I now get a chance to go around and do a lot of training for new coaches, and I never talk about coaching basketball or coaching lacrosse. I talk about coaching kids. This is just the vehicle. And so what you do is you build relationship. You got to build trust, and part of building trust is listening to people. And Lord knows I've made a lot of mistakes over the years in terms of not listening, and then also the next day apologizing when to your team as a human, saying, look, I missed that one, or I didn't communicate, or I didn't listen to you guys. When you do stuff like that, then the relationship is back and forth, and kids are going to appreciate you and more likely to do good things for you.
Sure. No, that makes a lot of sense. As we talked about in the boys' game, girls' game here, a lot of multiple sport athletes, some of them playing 3 sports, and that'll segue into something that's near and dear to you, 241 Sports. And to our viewers, why don't you explain what that's all about, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these girls, it's really fun for me, have come through our program. You know, our tagline of life's too short for just one sport really came from a moment of outrage when my now 20-year-old daughter was 9 and had gotten picked to be on the local travel soccer team, and the coach said, hey, she's our #1 prospect. And I said, look, she's 9 years old. She's nobody's prospect. And he's like, all right, whatever. And then he goes on to talk about how she's going to fit into his Brazilian style of soccer. And after about 15 or 20 minutes, I was flattered, as my oldest child, and saying nice things. But I said, look, she's interested in lacrosse. Her mom played lacrosse. And he said, we're no longer interested, simply because she showed interest in lacrosse. And as you know, she went on to be a pretty good lacrosse player.
Sure.
And had I listened as a parent to that coach, she never would have had that opportunity. And I worry about young parents out there who do listen to coaches that say things like that, because I could have gotten bullied into not playing a sport that my kid thrived in. So, you know, we started the program, and I didn't think it would resonate quite as much as it did. And before you knew it, we were in Washington, D.C., being recognized as one of 8 model programs in the U.S., and now we're getting a chance to spread our message beyond just Connecticut, but in states around the union. So it's been a really humbling but fun experience for me, and you know, I feel very grateful.
Yeah, you must feel very gratified to see the growth of it as much as it has.
Yeah, you know, we're trying to change the culture. We're trying to do things differently in this country, and we're trying to do something about it. I think that Feigenbaum's about to get a card for taking a late shot after the whistle. It's unfortunate. Might have been seen as showing up the goalie. I'm not really sure. But from what I was watching, I'm not sure that's the most warranted card. But so Feigenbaum's got to sit out. It'll be Hall ball. Oh, actually, no. Apparently on the rule, because it wasn't dangerous, it was probably something else. They're giving it to Conard.
And not to condone what she did, but it just shows her competitive spirit.
Absolutely,
that even
yeah.
up 10-0 with 3 minutes to go in the contest, she's still out there fighting.
Sure. No, that's right. And I think you know, the way she looked at the goalie, I don't get the sense she did anything deliberately, intentionally, but the referee thought maybe it was a little too much. Goalie was frozen. She took the shot anyway, and I think that's why he awarded it. I'm just surprised, though, that the ball doesn't go over to Hall in that case. But up 10, it's running time at this point, kind of a mercy rule. Conard does not need to shoot again, and the fact that they're down a man, they probably just want to run out the penalty, where Hall, on the other hand, should be double teaming and trying to turn this ball over, because they'd like to get at least one goal to avoid the shutout.
Previous touch I wanted to mention was Caitlin Shulkin. I just want to mention about her.
Yeah, just before you do that, there was a nice check from behind by Condon, who was on her way trying to get that elusive first goal. And there it is.
Score. They break the shutout with 2:11 to go. Good for them that they're able to do that.
Yeah, it's certainly a lot more comforting to go into the end of the game huddle knowing that you put one up on the board. Now, interesting is that Feigenbaum should. So, is she walking back out there? No, I don't think so. They're still down a man. So if Hall is able to get the draw, obviously they're not going to come back down from 10-1. But if they could get 2 more in, that would be pretty gratifying for them at this point.
Absolutely. So for Tori Condon, her 29th goal of the season.
That's a good freshman effort, and so good for her.
So again, as we talked about, they're going to come on the short end of the stick here today, Steve, but a lot to build on with all the great freshmen and sophomores they have. This program is in really, really good shape for the next couple of years.
Yeah, and it's always interesting to to talk to my friends in the youth lacrosse ranks to see what's up and coming, and then who's going to what side of town. I mean, it's one of the real challenges is that if you have a great travel program but you split evenly, you've cut your talent pool in half, but you're sharing it, and that's twice as many kids that get to play this great sport.
Sure.
So I have no issue with it. It's just when you think about the Glastonburys and the Dariens, the kids who come up together play at the high school level together, where a lot of these Hall and Conard girls were teammates through 8th grade, and now they got to be competitors.
Changes the whole dynamic, that's for sure.
Yeah, but again, I think as somebody that's such a proponent for kids being active for life, the fact that we can double the numbers, while we'd have an all-star team and probably would win a lot more state championships and compete with the Dariens and Glastonburys at a higher level, really what matters is the fact that these kids are all having a great high school experience and the opportunity to play high school lacrosse.
Yeah, you get twice as many jobs or spots, for lack of a better term,
exactly,
for these kids to fill.
Exactly. So hopefully these are future coaches, future moms, future leaders, and we've doubled the number of opportunities for that level of leadership. You can see Tua Kangas has that nice spin move to try to get to her left hand, but Conard was certainly ready for it there.
With a minute to go, 10-1 the score. Pass right out in front, deflected away. There's a shot, they score again. There's Chloe Nordyke, the freshman, getting her 18th goal of the season. And 2 late goals for the Warriors, it's 10-2.
I believe that little bang, 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 bang play was Sister Act. It was, I think it was sister to sister, and they were both looking for each other on little short dumps. And so it was nice to see the back-to-back goals there. Hall can feel good about having had that. Now they wish there was about 24 minutes left in the game to give them a chance to get back in. But again, good for morale. You know, 10-2 is more respectable than 10-0 and is more in line with the 3-0 that we had at halftime.
Right, exactly. And gives them a little something to feel good about as they go towards the tournament.
No, absolutely. Look, both teams should feel good about aspects of this game. Conard certainly coming out and doing what they did in the second half, but Hall should feel really good about their capacity to execute a proper game plan as the coaches put together today. So, you know, it's senior day, so we might see another shot, but Conard may otherwise just choose to run it out and call it a day at 10-2 against their crosstown rival. 21 seconds to go. We'll see if we get another draw or not. Pete, this has been a lot of fun for me, so thank you for the opportunity.
Steve, a pleasure, absolute pleasure. Yeah. Always enjoy working with you.
So right now they're just doing a little trap in the corner there like you see in soccer sometimes. There's a check, which gives the turnover to Hall. Probably just throw it upfield and call it a game.
And we'll definitely see you for soccer in the fall, okay?
Absolutely. Love doing this. If you ever need me for basketball, I've been around that a fair bit as well. So
sure.
You just you let me know, and I'll be back.
Buzzer sounding, and the Conard Chieftains get their 12th victory of the year. They win it in convincing fashion by the count of 10-2. And final remarks, Steve, about what you saw today.
Well, I think both coaches have good stuff to talk about at halftime as they enter into their respective schedules for state. You know, Hall still has Danbury ahead of them, which if they could eke out a win there, will up their seeding. But, again, game plan for Hall. Stay true to it. Keep executing. Get back to full strength. Maybe Cammie Cho's able to get in for a game or two moving forward. And Conard, keep pressing. In other words, if your shot's not going in, keep on shooting, keep doing your thing. And I wish them both luck moving forward.
Absolutely. Thanks again, Steve.
Great to be with you, Pete.
Terrific job as always. Steve Boyle joining us on the broadcast today. Doubleheader action, and they both go to Conard. The boys winning 12-3, and the girls follow that up with a 10-2 victory. We hope to catch up with the victorious head coach Megster Sassamo along with Maya Fagenbaum, and we'll do that after these messages on Channel 5.
I took most of this one. I kind of helped you there.
Oh, you got more.
I got this one.
Nice.
Push your way.
Oh, that's.
Hey, how are you?
Yeah. Oh, no, yeah. No, these are two separate ones.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You're so okay.
I know. I had my roommate Pierce here, too. They were a little crooked.
You doing? Good. How are you? Yeah, awesome game. See you at the next one. Take care.
I woke up this morning and like Harry turned off all the air conditioning. I woke up and he was like, it was just like a sauna, and I was like, what is this? He just pulled up.
Doubleheader sweep for Conard here today in Lacrosse. The girls did just as well, if not better, than the boys, Mexer Sosimo.
Thank you very much.
What was so good about your team defensively to keep them off the board as long as you did?
You know, we were calm, cool, and collected. We were reading them very well. We sat back and kind of waited for them to attack, and when they did, we seized the opportunities.
What was the message at halftime? It was only 3-0 at the break, and then you guys came out on fire in the second half.
Yeah, we were doing very well all over the field except for finishing. I just said you just have to take your time. You have great opportunities. We're working for great opportunities, but now we just need to finish. So we had to take our time when we were shooting.
And speaking of finishing, you've scored 10 goals or more in every single game. That was in doubt until the end, so you kept that streak going too.
I didn't know that, so thank you for that stat. It's impressive. We have a lot of very hardworking girls on our team.
You know, the great baseball historian Bill James says that in any sport, if you have a goal for versus goal against differential that is as tops as can be, that means you're a good team. Your goal against differential is over plus 100. That's something.
It's fantastic. So, again, I'm very blessed. I have a lot of very, very talented and hardworking young women.
You're going to take it one game at a time, I know, as you go towards the tournament. What has to go well for Conard to be successful in the upcoming state tournament?
We have to play well all over the field. And we have yet to really have a game where everybody's been on. One person's picked up the other and one person's been down. I'm waiting for everyone to be playing at their full capacity. When we do that, I think we could be unstoppable.
I asked you to describe this team in one word. You said mature. Maturity gets things done for state championship-wise, so I wish you the best of luck that way.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Meg, thanks again. Guys, what does it mean when you beat the Hall Warriors?
Oh, it's just the best feeling. We worked so hard all season, and to finally beat them, it's just what we really wanted. It's great.
It's honestly one of the best feelings in the whole world. I can't describe more. Being on this field and being able to beat our town rival is just so accomplishing.
You've had a terrific season again. 13-2 going into the state tournament. That's an .867 winning percentage if my math is correct.
Very exciting.
It is very exciting. Coach just talked about having to excel at all facets of the game in the state tournament. I'm sure you agree.
Yeah, if we play our game, I don't think there's any team that we can't compete with, and I'm really excited to see how we do that.
One other question for you. You had the losses this year against Glastonbury and against Daniel Hand. Coach said that they were both learning experiences. Hopefully that serves well and you can learn from that going forward in the state tournament.
Yeah, definitely. I think we just need to stay more focused with that and, hope, like nothing, not everything could go the way we planned it, and we just have to hope for the best and really try our hardest to get to where we want to be.
Well, I remember back in 2011, I had the privilege of broadcasting the Conard softball state championship. They won the game down in West Haven to win the state title. I hope you guys win a state title, too.
Thank you so much. So do we.
Okay, congratulations on the win. The Conard doubleheader sweep today as the girls finished things off 10-2 victory after the boys won the opener by the count of 12-3. Wanted to say thanks to all involved. Diana, Meredith, Jen from the TV side, Paul and Dennis, and all our volunteers from the War Chief Sports Council. And a reminder, one more spring broadcast. It'll be the Mayor's Cup. You can watch it live on Channel 5, 4:30 next Monday, Hall against Conard at Fiandella Field at the University of Hartford. Until then, so long, everybody.